Alright, how's it going, everybody? My name's Antonio, and I am not in my usual dungeon, as you could well tell. I've been allowed to venture off into the world, and I am at the Prospectors and Developers Association of Canada conference, also known as a PDAC, I guess. And it's the largest mining event of the year in the world, I believe. Maybe not in the world. I don't know. I've never been to North America, so I feel completely out of place. But someone told me there's a bunch of rocks to look at and a bunch of CEOs to be grilled. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. And I'll just take you along for the ride with me. And that's pretty much it. Oh, no. Hang on. I forgot to tell you, as always, fair disclaimer and honest confession, I have no idea what I'm doing. That's pretty much it. As well, there's a disclaimer on your screen right now. Please read it. But none of the companies I'll be speaking to, none of them are paying me to do so. I got here on my own dime, and I'm paying my own incredibly expensive Airbnb, which is a 3-day horseback ride from here. But it is what it is, I suppose. Point is, I might own shares of these companies, though, and I might have a professional relationship with them, at least with some of them. So just assume that they own me and they have claim over my firstborn's soul, which potentially makes me biased. Unless it's a ginger baby, in which case nobody's going to want that. But not the point is, just proceed thinking of this as an advertisement as opposed to independent research. All right, Dave Lotan, first time, well, not for you. You've been, investing in this space for 25 years, also an activist investor for the better part of that. But it is my first time here at PDAC, and I want to go and talk to some people, look at some rocks, and I know a bunch of them are going to lie to me. How do I protect myself? What do I ask, and what do I look out for?
Well, there's a lot of there's a lot of opportunity to be deceived here, without a doubt. But for the most part, many of these people have good intentions. Some of them, maybe a third of them, don't. The best question you can ask any of these companies is, what are the royalties on your property, and do you personally own any of those royalties? If the answer is yes, then walk away. Once you get through that very crude, simple filter, then the question is, what are your plans to get through the next year? Because obviously we're at what I would call a cycle low or a short cycle low in capital for the industry. As we discussed off camera, the China capital was gone probably 5 years ago, and the capital that was available to the space as a result of Eric Sprott's very active investing on his early successes off the last cycle bottom has probably declined to a minimum level. So we're at 1990s, maybe 1994 level capital for the industry now. That was a relatively healthy time, but it certainly had fewer companies and smaller companies. And so assuming that's the environment we're in, I guess a company needs to tell you what they would have done in 1994 if they were running their business then.
When I look at the rocks, non-geologist, and I mean, pyrite looks like gold to me. What else? What do I look for at the rocks?
Well, I guess that depends on what you're looking for. Are you thinking about gold this year, or
just a 10x stock? That would do.
Well, the gold stocks are pretty cheap right now, so I think that if you're looking for rocks right now, you might start looking at gold, because the equities, while the commodity's done extremely well, even while tons are flowing out of the ETFs, I think the ETFs lost almost a quarter of their tons in the last year, but the gold price has still been going up, something which I think can't be reconciled with the current price of gold equities, which have also gone down. So you can't sell high if you don't buy low. Gold stocks are dangerous right now because I don't think there's a playbook for where we are, but at the same time, the prices are in an area where you traditionally find value, and then specifically, what are you looking for in rocks right now? Again, more simply, you're looking for grade and not tons. There's lots and lots of low-grade, half-gram stories around here that have been around for 3 or 4 cycles now that I don't think will make it through this one. I mean, they'll end up in other companies in the next cycle, perhaps. But there's 4 or 5 deposits worldwide today that have grade and size, and I think those ones will make it through. They're pretty easy to find here. Reunion Gold, Snowline, stuff like that.
You don't think that's too expensive by now?
What's that?
You don't think that's too high? I mean, some of these are...
One?
Well, there's a lot of really expensive exploration stories, and when That might be a podcast in and of itself, but when
Sure.
does an exploration story become what's too much? $1 billion, $2 billion, $5 billion?
Yeah, that's a relative question. So I guess if you look at the production profile of the majors and then the mid-tiers, I would argue that there's a scarcity of good discoveries at the moment. And good discoveries often trade at a premium because relative to the need, the large producers, there are so few discoveries that can meet those needs. So Snowline is a pricey stock, Reunion's a pricey stock, G2 not quite so pricey, but I think those things will all make it to their final destination in this cycle, which will be the belly of some gold producer. And the reason that they trade where they trade is because I think it's obvious what the end game is. Not the timing and not the price, but I think I think they're needed by the industry. I think that's the better way to put it.
What range of market cap would you say is the best stuff now? Well, I guess technically the worst stuff, but it's going to be the best stuff soon.
Well, market cap is probably not the best way to look at it. So when I think about investing in a junior, for instance, in this environment, what I want to understand is what it costs to hold the land, what it costs to run the company, and what they have in the bank. So if I like the opportunity, if I think that it has the right kind of blue sky, if they have enough money to keep the company alive for a couple of years because the land costs are low and the work requirements are low, then I think that's a good starting point. So you need the blue sky, you need reasonable holding costs, and you need reasonable work requirements. Like you don't need a bunch of option payments coming due or payments in stock. Better if the ground is staked, for instance, rather than being optioned. And those are more idiosyncratic details on a story-by-story basis, but they're the important thing to look for these days.
All right, Dave, well, thank you so much for your time. I don't like short discussions, so we should do this again soon, speak for another 3-4 hours, because I know you can. So thank you so much for your time. All right, so QC Copper and Gold, $20 million market cap. It's a gold and copper deposit in Quebec, close to the city of Chapé. And you're probably not the only ones here thinking that you have the best stock or the best company out there. Why do you think that is in your case? Well, let's put it differently. A lot of people here don't think their stock is going to go to zero, but data says that most of them eventually will. Why do you think your stock is not going to go to zero?
We don't think about it in the context of not going to zero. We think about what the future lies in the upside. So I suppose anything over a long enough period of time goes to zero. However, in the context of what we're trying to build here at QC Copper, we're thinking in terms of a 3 to 5 year time frame where this thing can be a final production decision can be made. And so there's a lot of work that's going to go into the Opimiska between now and then. You never say never, but the chances of it going to zero is when you consider the fact that we've got 2 billion pounds of pit-constrained copper in the middle of Quebec, highest grade open pit copper deposit in Canada. If that goes to zero, then I think 99.9% of these people around here are going to zero. Do we have the best project? Well, I don't know. That's very subjective. We have a wonderful project. It's a very unique project. It has access to infrastructure, good jurisdiction, government support, community support. And, out of all the projects we own here in the OR Group, which is probably one of the biggest portfolios of assets in Canada, I would say that the Opimiska, we know more about it than anything else. There's 1 million meters into this thing. Charles Baudry, this is his project as far as I'm concerned. It's been his vision. He sourced it. Been working with him. He knows it better than anybody, and this is his baby.
Right. Do any of you guys own any royalties on the project or in the deposit or something?
No. Charles, do you own a royalty?
No, I don't own a royalty.
I wish I owned a royalty.
Yeah.
I think I'd be, in a much better financial position if I own a royalty on this project. But there is a royalty on this project. It's to the Gaucher family, who Charles knows going back to the 80s. We acquired it from them. Now they're one of our largest shareholders. They're great supporters. There's 3 generations of mining folk from Edwin to Pierre, and now Frederick, who I saw this morning. They own the royalties on the project. It's going to do very well for their family, we suspect.
What's 2024 going to be all like for you? What unanswered question are you looking to answer this time around?
Well, let's just say we're right now we're developing the technical aspect of our project, our proposal for the exploration, and we haven't decided if we're going to do it. There are things we need to do, like on the adjacent property, which has 2 of the 4 mines on the Cook Robitaille. We know we have to spend $1 million in the coming year, and we're going to do that.
Do you have $1 million?
Yeah, we have $1 million.
We have multiple $1 million.
Yeah,
we have
that's
$5
right.
million in cash, and we also have that position in baseload energy.
But we're looking to propose a 15,000 meter drill program on Opimiska itself. Not sure that we're going to do it this year, but it's going to be in our back pocket if we want to do it. And also we're looking seriously to launch a PEA, which we may be able to. It takes 3 to 6 months to do a preliminary economic analysis, so we may be able to complete it this year. If not, we'll complete it early next year. But we have the funding for that too. So and like right now, all we can say is that our internal studies, we do our internal studies. And our financial modeling internally is very, very good for the project. We can't talk about it because as soon as we talk about it, it triggers the PEA.
Right.
Okay, so we can't talk about it. But we are confident of what we're doing. And we spent the last 2 years, our resource came in a year later than what we were hoping, and it's been difficult. But we're there now. We have the great deposit sitting on very solid scientific basis. And then from there we can expand it somewhat, and we can move it forward. It's really.
And a part of 2024 is really, as Charles was saying, it's really twofold to me. Is one is we're pivoting towards the engineering and the economics. Right. So the last 2 years, in fact, the last 4 or 5 years have been defining the geology, which we've done a wonderful job on. There's still more to do on the Cook and the Robitaille. So there's lots of work there, which we, in terms of exploration and growth, that we're going to get to. But I think the real value driver is going to be that pivot towards engineering and economics. And we just announced a new president. His name's Guy Labelle. He just came on board. We have been talking to him for a long time. We wanted to make sure that he fit with our culture, our plan. He's got a history on the project. He was here when he was in university. He was working on the mine. So anyways, it all fit together. He's a mining engineer. He's Quebec-based, and he's going to lead our charge towards this engineering and economic deposit, which is all going to be culminated by a PEA. And that's in the works.
Right. And you're the rocks man. You think you have some of the better rocks. Maybe you can show me something.
Yeah. Well, what we're looking at is not typical of what we're going to mine. This is very high-grade material. It's almost massive chalcopyrite, which is running 30% copper. We have crown pillars. They mined underground, so as a result of that, they had to leave material between the stopes and the surface. And there's a number of veins that are located under the historical mill, and around the mill area, they were forced to leave very thick pillars. And because we're going to make an open pit, all of the mill infrastructure, historical, is all gone. So it's like a clean slate for us. So we can go back and we can mine these pillars, which have material like this, and that's part of our starter pit. And that's over 1%, almost 1.1% copper equivalent. So it's a very good material, and it's going to be impactful, very significant.
You're potentially bringing in silver in the mix this time around too, though. Is that going to complicate things in terms of the resource or the mill or anything else?
Absolutely not. No, the silver basically, the likelihood is the silver is just going to be a credit at the smelter. We're not going to do anything special. We may be able to tweak the mill process to improve a little bit the silver content, but the silver basically follows the gold and the copper. So it's very, very simple.
You're exploring for gold where it's never been found or has been found?
Well, there's been some exploration in the area before, but there's never been a resource, particularly on this property, the High Lake property.
Okay. And so where exactly are you looking for it?
Right now, we're drilling on our High Lake property, which is close to the border of Ontario, Manitoba. We have 2 properties straddling the boundary. We drilled the West Hawk Lake property on the Manitoba side last year, and the year before.
Okay.
We drilled last year on the High Lake property from December of the year before to February of this year, and we got a resource of 96,000 indicated ounces and 47,000.
How much are you drilling this year?
We got 11,600 meters to drill this year on the High Lake property, focusing on the Purdick zone where we found the resource last year, and extending that exploration out to the western side of our property where there's some very, very high value targets.
How much money is that going to cost this year?
Our budget this year is about $4.7 million.
Okay. Do you have that sitting in the bank right now?
Well, we spent a lot of that already because our drilling program is going on, but we have the money in the bank to complete that 11,600 meter drill program.
Okay, but so you have assay results coming up shortly, basically.
We should have assay results coming out shortly. So we started the drilling about just at the end of December of last year. And we expect to have some assays to announce in the coming weeks.
Good, good. Is there a royalty on the project that you're exploring right now?
There's a small underlying royalty on part of the property that we're drilling right now. There's a small royalty on only a part of the property.
Right. Who owns that royalty, by the way?
I'd rather not say.
What's that?
I'm not going to talk about that.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah. No, fair point. Well, you have a bunch of rock. That's what attracted me here. Let's look at some of the rock, and you can tell me what you have here. What do you have with you?
Well, this is the most interesting. This is the most interesting point right now. This is one of our discovery holes. So this was almost 25 grams over 14.9 meters. That's the hole. If you want to get a shot of it, it's on the bottom hole on the 3D isometric. Okay. So one of the things I think is key to this property is not only this core, which is a fantastic result, but on the 3D, if you got a picture of that, if I get a high grade intersection in one hole, I'm happy, but I'm not too excited. If I get one or two high grade intersections that are focused, isolated in a certain area, it's nice, but I'm not really happy. If I get high grade intersections throughout the deposit, that makes me very happy and I get excited.
Right.
And over the 5 months that we were drilling on this particular property, 3 or 4 of our intersections made the Junior Mining Hub's top 10 list of gold intersections globally.
Right.
So it's a fantastic deposit. So in 10,000 meters of drilling, we got, like I said, 96,000 ounces of inferred, 46,000 ounces of indicated. So that's about 14 ounces per meter drilled, which is an astounding number. I don't think we can repeat that. I don't think anybody can, but we can certainly build this resource. So we're very early stage exploration. So we completed one drill program on High Lake. This is our second. The key in moving forward in the short term is to build that resource around the High Lake Perdex deposit on High Lake. So we're looking deeper on that Perdex deposit, and we're looking east and west to develop additional chutes. That's the best way to build a resource cheaply and quickly, and provide the best value to the shareholders. And we also have some incredible targets on the western side of our property that have not been touched by us at all. Historical drilling has intersections out there of almost 55 grams at 6.7 meters, and one on some claims that we just picked up recently. There's one intersection there at 168 grams per ton over 2.4 meters. So
That sounds like quite the high grade. Now, I can also see 148 over 1.3 meter. Nuggety effect risk?
there is some VG, but no, there's not. The coarsest VG we found, I can show it to you after. It's not large nuggets. It's even the VG is fairly fine in terms of the VG.
Right.
And we believe we haven't done a lot of metallurgical work on it yet. It's early for that, but some work was done in the past, minor in nature, but it looks like there'd be very high recoveries on this type of deposit with just gravity and flotation. So.
When do you think metallurgy is going to come then?
Oh, first we got to build the resources. As I said, we're early stage exploration. We have to build the resource up. So we got, with indicated and inferred, total about 142,000 ounces on our first drilling program. We got to build that resource up to something that's reasonable. What I'd like to do then, upgrade the resource, do another 43-1 report, potentially do preliminary economic analysis on it, that sort of thing. At that time, when we're doing that, some metallurgical work would be warranted.
But in the meantime, you don't think grade variability or width variability is going to be an issue?
No, the high grade deposit covers a lot of sins. Right? So there is some variability in the width of the deposit, but that's normal on almost all. It's a narrow vein deposit, even though we just have some wide intersections. It's still classed as a narrow vein deposit.
There's no VG in this core, is there?
There is probably, but it's very fine grained, and you need a magnifying glass to see it.
What's in this core? What else is in this core if it's not? I mean,
Well,
what else are we observing specifically?
The gold is mostly associated. It's all in quartz veins.
Yeah.
Where the gold is where the tourmaline comes in, tourmaline quartz vein, with some small amount of sulfides. That's where the highest grade comes.
Okay, well, Roger, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
And we'll stay in touch when you have some of the drill results coming out. Maybe we can do this again. All right, Martin. So we found a bunch of manganese. You're one of the few companies that's found a bunch of manganese, at least here at PDAC, as far as I could tell. What's next for the company if you've already found it?
Okay, I just want to clarify a couple of issues. Marty Kepman, CEO. Our manganese, first of all, is a carbonate manganese. There's two different types of manganese, carbonate and oxides. And we have one of the largest carbonate properties, one of the two in North America. So we're very, very proud. So that's a very, very big aspect of it. And we have a very, very large property. And it's really strategically located in Woodstock, New Brunswick. We're 12 miles away from Holston, Maine, the U.S., shipping channels to the United States near the St. Lawrence Seaway and the Atlantic Ocean. So we're really strategically located, and we have a great carbonate product.
So, well, what then is next for the company? I can see capital costs of $350 million. Not a low number.
Okay, great question. We had just finished our PEA right now last year, and we came up with very, very robust economic data. And right now, as you can see, we're just in the process of going into our pre-feasibility study. However, we just have now we've had a pilot project running for over a year, and we're extremely excited and very happy to be able to have produced this high purity manganese sulfate, which is a precursor to the cathode, which we mix different metals in to make sure that the cathode runs efficiently. Right. And just another point is the cathode is like 40 to 60% of cost of the battery. So it's an extremely important metal here that we're using, and we're right now going to be sending it out. We're in talks with some very, very large OEMs to be able to pre-test or pre-qualify the product into the cathode. And we're getting a lot of great interest on it because of the fact that they've opened up some battery metal hubs in Quebec and in Ontario, and there's very, very large OEMs in there. There's Volkswagen, Ford, GM, all over, and they're going to need a North American product. And we're really progressing well, and the people are looking. Some of these companies really want an offtake deal, and they're just not going to sign offtake deals just with one company because they need extra suppliers and just make sure that they can get their supply. So our biggest thing right now is to send this out and get pre-qualified.
Right.
And we're extremely excited because we have produced a certificate of analysis so far, which shows that we're able to meet the rigid specs of the EV battery cathode. So we're excited about that.
Going from PEA to a PFS, not cheap. Do you have the money to do it?
Well, right now we have almost $3 million in the bank. And we did some financing at the end of December, and we stopped the financing because we want to be able to get this out because we're anticipating to get an OEM to participate in our company because of our technology, our proprietary technology, and what we can prove. So hopefully, we'll get this done within the next 2 or 3 months. And we were talking to some OEMs right now.
What do they want to see from you in order to get involved in the story?
Great story. They first of all want to send this out and have a cell manufacturer test it. And the first thing is you got to get through the first stage. And the first stage is pre-qualifications, preliminary, which takes maybe 6-8 weeks. If you pass the test, then they want to do their due diligence and who they're working with. They want to probably discuss. We're working with a tremendous metallurgical company called Cametco Research out of Richmond, British Columbia. They're one of the foremost experts in manganese. We've been working with them since 2017. And also we've worked with a very, very, very recognized consulting and engineering firm called Wood. So we've come up with our PEA, robust economics, and showing we can produce 86,000 tons a year for the first 7 years, and 64,000 for the rest of 40 years for a grand total of 47-year mine life. So they'll do their due diligence, but we're pretty confident that they can do it because we've only worked with the professionals and we have a great team. So that's where we're going.
And this is the rock that it's all going to come out from. What are we? Interesting looking rock. There's a bunch of colors in there, but that's pretty much all that I know or understand about rocks. That they have colors. What else? What else are we looking at?
I can tell you is it's a rhodioserite, which is a key factor. It's a carbonate and a rhodioserite, and it's MnCO3. It's manganese carbonate O3. And unfortunately, my geologist isn't here, but that's all I can really say because it's not an oxide; it's a carbonate. You know, it's different, completely different structure. There's silicates in there and things like that.
The fact that it's all looking so different, does that make the metallurgy or anything else more complex than it typically would be?
That's a very good question. It depends. Like we had different types of. We had something called the Christmas, where different colors and a little different composition, but we were able to make it into a composite and test it at our labs as a composite. We sent over 1,000 tons to our lab as a sample to represent the first 5 years of the product, and this is the end product. So really, we had no problems combining the different colors and the different materials in there. But there hasn't been a major difference in the colors. That's all I know about manganese. I've been only doing this for 7 years, and it's an unbelievable. I just want to say something. It's a really interesting subject. There's different types of varieties and processes in manganese. There's oxides, carbonates, how they produce it through EMM, or as you can see right here, we're taking our ore and producing an end product directly from the ore. There's so many different types of components in there, different types of sorts, so it's very fascinating. But I've learned a lot in 7.5 years doing it.
All right, so that was day one. I'm in the Airbnb. Now, I don't know how the audio is actually on this laptop microphone. Didn't bring my proper microphone, only like the lapel Gen Z TikTok type of microphone. So this is my computer. Anyways, it's actually very expensive, this Airbnb, at least to my taste. Like 150 euros a night. Even though we booked well in advance, I'm hearing way higher prices for other people. I don't know how they... Anyways. But it's like it's dirty, like it's unclean, and the sheets don't smell too fresh, but it is... I don't know, I guess landlords have to make money too. It is on a high-rise floor, though, which is cool for me coming from Europe. I don't typically get to get up as high as this. I can see the lake from here, which is also cool. City lights are kind of nice in the evening. Probably some pictures on right now, but so far though, Toronto food gets a 6 out of 10 for me. It's not great, and it's not cheap either, but I've only really had a meatball sandwich at St. Lawrence Market, so I haven't gone to like a restaurant or anything like that. It's expensive in restaurants. Meatball sandwich, not too expensive, but if you ever go to St. Lawrence Market, apparently it's some sort of a tourist hotspot that you have to visit. You got to have cash with you, which I typically don't, and definitely no Canadian pesos. Because if you want to withdraw cash while you're there is an option, but it'll cost you, I believe, like $10 whenever you withdraw. And for me, that'd be like 50% because I only needed $20. So I didn't do that. Had to buy a meatball, whatever. You don't care about that. Talk about finder's fees, though, right? Yeah, I'll talk to hopefully to more companies tomorrow. I have no appointment. I made no appointments for interviews. I thought I'd just kind of wing it and ambush people. Which is not really being appreciated so far, and many of them want me to basically tell them the questions up front. They want to like rehearse it and whatnot. Kind of silly, in my opinion. But the funny thing is that I do see a lot of these companies on other interview channels throughout the year and stuff like that, which makes me think about what those channels are maybe offering them. But I guess I'll cut them some slack for the company, right? Because my face is not as easy to look at, so I get that part. I'll cut them some slack there. But yeah, I must have asked like 20 companies for an interview today, and I did, what was it, this like 4, maybe 5, I don't know, 4 interviews, something like that. So yeah, hoping for a better day tomorrow. But yeah, again, as you saw, I get to meet Dave Lotan again, who I've known for years now, but I've never really got to do a proper interview with him. He's a busy man, but I do hope for a longer 2-hour type of interview soon. I met Rick Rollo, Botigre, and a bunch of the other speakers, which was cool. Shook their hand and stuff like that. And I'm now off to a dinner meeting and some kind of a drinks party later. I don't know exactly what it's going to be about, but I've been invited, so I guess I'll go. I'm here nonetheless. I've slept like 3 hours though, but I'm excited and rambling at this point to cut it here and then move on to day 2. All right, I'm here with Marty Hennig. He's looking for gold in the Yukon, as many are. Tell me more about it, Marty.
Yeah, we're located a short 5-hour drive from Whitehorse to the northwest. We're along the Tintina Gold Belt, known for many gold deposits.
So are you, relative to, let's say, Snowline or Fireweed, where exactly are you?
We're quite a ways west. We're closer to Casino and the Coffee Project. Yeah.
Okay. So how do you get to your project? You drive there? You fly there?
Yeah, it's road access, government maintained road, and it's 80 kilometers gravel from Carmax.
Okay. And are there any royalties on the project, by the way?
Yeah, there's a 2% NSR on the property, but that's pretty standard nowadays.
Right. Who owns that?
I believe it's Bill Harris.
Okay, fine. Good. And you're pretty far up. I see that you've done an MRE in 2020. What are you doing in 2024?
Well, currently we're busy raising capital for the next phase of exploration. The mineral resource currently has 2 million gold equivalent ounces in 3 separate deposits.
Do you think you're getting any value for those 2 million ounces right now in the market?
No, we're extremely undervalued. So if you're interested in looking us up, we're TIG.
Yeah. So, but you're going to need money, you say, to start the next phase of exploration. What's that going to look like specifically?
We're looking for a $5 million budget this year. We've got some untested targets that are ready to drill, roads there, broad geochem and geophysic anomalies. We feel it's a good opportunity to add ounces. And then we also want to expand our already existing resources and look for additional satellite deposits in and around what we've already discovered.
How much of what you're going to be doing this year is going to be focused on expanding versus finding something new?
It'll be a balance, about 50-50. We really want to add ounces outside of what's already been defined. So we really want to push that full exploration discovery.
You say $5 million. How many meters is that going to get you? Because it's road access, so I don't assume it's $1,000 a meter.
Yeah, we're at about $200 to $400 a meter all in. I would expect that would give us something like 5,000 meters of drilling.
Oh, okay, good. And then halfway split, 2.5 exploration versus growing the resource, basically.
It's all going to be exploration.
Oh, okay.
Targeting to grow the resource.
Targeting to grow the resource. That's what I'll put it. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So let's look at some of the rocks because you have a bunch of different rocks lying around.
The Freegold Mountain property is really a geologist's dream. We have everything geologically in close proximity to one another. We have the porphyry driver that has gold, copper, silver, bit of a tungsten moly credit. And not too far away, there's an epithermal deposit. So 2 kilometers off to the side of the porphyry is where we see the epithermal, and that's another 1 million ounces. So we've got the 1 million ounce gold equivalent porphyry, and then the epithermal. With recent developments in the Yukon, with some of these other targets, people are doing really well finding these sheeted vein systems. We're going to start looking for those indicators. We do have those geochemical signatures with the tellurium, bismuth, and antimony, along with elevated gold, of course.
Have you assayed for? Well, you mentioned bismuth. Have you assayed for any of the other deleterious elements, as arsenic or whatever else?
Arsenic is a great pathfinder for us. Of course, we do the full 35-element, multi-element analysis on every meter of drilling that we do. So we're getting those indicators, of course, and we see quite a bit of bismuth and antimony on the property as well.
Good pathfinders, but could get challenging in terms of metallurgy. Is that the case for you?
I don't see that being a challenge at all. One of the other things that we're looking at is how we can do and operate a heap leach, quite similar to Victoria Gold. We're looking at metallurgy from the nucleus deposit. The first half of the deposit is about 100 meters thick of oxide gold, so we're going to look at how we can bring on a low-cost operation and then move into maybe a milling scenario.
Any met work planned for this year?
We are going to go back to some of the historical drilling, and we're going to pull some information and do some met work with that.
Okay, bottle roll.
We're going to do cyanide leach analysis on a number of samples throughout the deposit, and then we'll get a real good handle on what those recoveries are going to look like before we go to the next step.
Okay. But again, interesting looking rocks. What I do notice is that they all look quite different. And I know as much about rocks as my wife knows when she's looking at countertops. So why are they different? Does that make the metallurgy or anything else more complex?
Well, you're seeing the wide suite of rocks because, as I mentioned, we do have that porphyry, mineralization, alteration, and then the epithermal signature, which is in a completely different package of rocks. So we've got these Cretaceous age intrusions. They're known for bringing in the mineralization along our Big Creek fault system, which is parallel to the Tintina-Denali fault. It's a real good signature for the Tintina Gold Belt, and we see porphyry, epithermal, and some skarns on our property. Okay. I think it would be also worth mentioning there were 5 active placer mines on our property. They're still getting really good gold out of the creeks, and we're trying to find the source for this gold.
Okay. The placer mines are on your property. Is that how do you deal with that once you move it forward potentially into a PEA, or what's sort of the agreement between you guys?
Well, the way it works in the Yukon is the placer miners have surface rights, and they're just limited to the sands and gravels. And the other claims are underneath that. That's the bedrock rights, the quartz claims, and our deposits are slightly offset from where the gold is ended up in the creeks.
Okay.
So it's not going to be an issue.
Right. I believe I forgot to ask you, when are you going to be, provided that the financing goes well, when are you looking at starting to drill there? It's around May-ish?
Yeah, summer's always the easier way to go in the Yukon, but we can drill all year round. But yeah, it is that June to September, October field season, depending on the weather. That would be ideal for us.
Right. Well, thank you, Marty, for the overview. I hope we can catch up after you started drilling and look at what you're doing up there in the Yukon. But yeah, thank you for your time.
Thanks for stopping by.
All right, Cascadia Minerals. I'm here at Graham Downs. You're looking for gold in the Yukon, and you've actually found some. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. We made a new copper gold discovery in central Yukon, just southeast of Carmax, and just located about 10 kilometers from a major highway and a power line.
How do you drill the project? Is it helicopter supported, or?
Yeah, it's just a short hop from the highway, so it's not very far. At this stage, it's probably better to just continue that until we build up and find more resources at this stage of exploration. So, yeah.
How many meters have you put in the project now?
So we put the first ever diamond drill holes on this project. The project we're working on has never been staked in the history of the Yukon until a young prospector went out looking and found copper gold mineralization at surface over almost from 500 meters to a kilometer. He brought it to us. We optioned it off of him, and it's the most copper and gold mineralization I've seen on the surface in my almost 30 years career in the Yukon. So just amazing that you can still find these kind of new targets and discoveries in 2023 in favorable jurisdiction. So yeah, it's a brand new discovery.
Does the prospector who sold that to you or optioned it, does he have a royalty on it still?
There is a royalty, kind of your traditional 2%, but it can be bought down to 1%. And we've actually, we can earn 100% in the project, and we've almost spent all of the expenditures needed to earn into that project.
Or into that 100%. Okay, what do you have to do in 2024, or what do you want to do in 2024?
Well, we have where we drilled. I mean, we set the drill up in 2023, and we set that up on 30 grams gold, almost 4% copper in outcrop. 300 meters away, we've done another geophysical line that has a much bigger anomaly on it. The drill's sitting there right now, and we're going to be stepping out and drilling on our discovery hole, which is 116 meters of 0.3 copper and 0.3 gold, which, to put that in context, is the open pit resource grade of the Red Chris deposit. So, yeah, it's very rare that you can make a discovery on a copper gold porphyry discovery on your first 2 holes. So a very unique company, very few shares outstanding, and a lot of torque in the stock with major shareholders like Hecla and Barrick. Yeah, we're very well set up.
How much of the stock do you own personally?
Around 1%. Management owns around 4%. Hecla around 19%. Barrick almost 8%. Michael Gentili out of Montreal. So yeah, very good registry of shareholders for only 37 million shares out.
To go back to the upcoming drill program, how much do you want to drill this year?
As much as we can.
Do you got the money?
We're actually in the process of arranging a raise right now. We have about $1 million right now, so we'll look to raise about 1.2 to 2 million to start off with, but there's quite a bit of interest in the story right now, so that could grow.
How much does a meter of drilling cost you up there?
It ranges between 600 and 700 a meter all in, which is pretty good. Thankfully, we just have a short hop with the helicopter, so that's a reasonable price. If we can get 2 drills in, that brings the cost down quite a bit as well. So,
and that's what you want to do this year, 2 drills?
If we can, yeah, absolutely. But minimum of 1. And then later in the season, probably go down and drill our project in British Columbia called the Pill, another copper gold project as well.
Okay. But that's, okay, so you want to do that after you drill in the Yukon then?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. When do you think drilling could start? I mean, financing dependent, of course, but is it June-ish?
No, we might be able to get started earlier, maybe May or, probably May, realistically.
Oh, okay. Good. Well, what else can you tell me about the British Columbia project? Because you mentioned that, so you're piquing my interest.
Yeah, I mean, it's right in the heart of the Toodoggone. It's called the Pill property, PIL. It's right by Thesis Gold and between Amark and Freeport McMoran. It's on a road. We have a very large, very nice IP. We did a deep IP geophysical survey in 2023. We have a classic porphyry kind of signature, the pyrite halo and resistivity low, never been drilled to depth. So yeah, it's just needs to be drilled.
But the focus then still remains on the Yukon for you.
Yeah, initially it'll be the Yukon, but we have an incredibly good target Hill as well in BC.
Relatively small market cap though, so raising capital, not the easiest thing in the world for one project, but if you have to raise capital for 2 projects, that becomes even harder. Would you consider letting go of the BC project or optioning it or maybe selling it or something along the lines?
We'll look at everything, but I think we're pretty happy. I think there's a lot of interest in the story right now, so I'm optimistic that we'll be able to raise the money for one and just build on that. And yeah, I think we're in a good position, especially in the gold doing what it's doing now, and copper going to be a highlight for the years to come.
And the rocks that you have here with you, they're from the Yukon. Why did you bring them? What have you brought, really?
Well, it just shows from the Catch project, it shows that you can get up to 1% copper and 1 gram gold in the core that we've already seen on our first hole, and we're not even in the core of the system yet. So it's a real positive indicator for what we can find there. And then the other one is really about that we're seeing different types of style of mineralization associated with copper gold projects being a higher grade breccia as well. So it's really just demonstrating that we have all the pieces to be able to find or indicators that we're onto something good.
Good. Well, Graham, thank you for your time. I hope we can follow up sometime this summer and see what you found in the Yukon. Right, so I'm looking at Scandium, Canada, and I'm here with Pierre. Scandium's typically all over the place, isn't it, Pierre? So what makes your piece of land different?
So Scandium is dispersed throughout the world, but in very, very small concentrations. And there are very few primary Scandium projects in the world, and ours is one of the only ones. It's certainly the only one in North America and the only one in Europe. And our concentration at our plant, at our mine, is about 270 parts per million, and that's much more than anywhere else in the world.
So how far up the process of making it economic are you right now?
So we've completed a preliminary economic assessment in 2022, and now we're in development for the pre-feasibility study, which we expect to complete in this year or early next year. And the big stages for us are trying to find partners, either consuming partners or technical partners to help us develop this project.
How much money do you need to go from PEA to PFS?
About $15 million.
How much money do you have?
Right now, about just over $1 million.
Okay. So you need a partner quickly.
Well, we need a partner quickly. We've applied to the Canadian government, the Critical Minerals Initiative that just closed this past week, so we've requested funds from the Canadian government. But there are a lot of companies that are interested, and Scandium is not popular, it's not well known, so part of our job is to tell the Scandium story and the benefits of Scandium. And I think I just mentioned to you earlier that Scandium, when alloyed with aluminum, makes aluminum stronger and also makes it more corrosion resistant and also has some heat exchange properties. And so for end uses such as aerospace and specifically automotive, where electric vehicles are very heavy, the battery is very, very heavy, that the next stage, I think, in the worlds of critical metals is how do we make automobiles lighter? And Scandium, alloyed with aluminum, will make automobiles lighter, because if you take pure aluminum and add just a small amount of Scandium, you can increase the strength by about 8 times. And therefore you can use quite a bit less for the same strength and reduce the weight of the automobile. So those are the markets that we're looking for and the partnerships that we're looking for.
What kind of a partnership would this be? Is this sort of an OEM type of partnership or more of a large diversified mining company?
I think both. So if we look at companies that might be interested from the mining side, you have large companies such as Rio Tinto, who's started to be in the Scandium space, producing as a byproduct. And there might be other mining companies trying to do similar things. And then on the downstream side, the customers might be interested in securing a source of Scandium, especially if we have the only primary Scandium mine. And it might not be the OEM, it might be the tier 1 supplier, the supplier of the parts to the OEM company.
Right. And the Canadian government, you've applied for a grant right now, or is it when do you think you're going to have an answer for that?
You know, I'm not certain. I think it's in the next 4 or 5 months that they've probably received quite a few requests for funding, and I think it will take them a bit of time to, but they have a fund, $1.5 billion, and I think the grant for this year is going to be $300 million that they're going to divvy out, so we hope to get a share of that.
Okay. What are you doing in the meantime? It's 4 to 5 months, so you're telling the story, but are you drilling anything with your own money or just preserving capital?
No, not preserving capital. We have a metallurgical program for the pre-feasibility that was funded by the Quebec government, CRITIM, and so that's ongoing. We have environmental work that we're doing that is relatively inexpensive to do. We have relationship building with First Nations that we need to be doing, and partnership seeking, and also looking for new investors. So retail investors, also institutional investors. So we're spending quite a bit of time talking to people, telling the story, and we'll probably raise some money in the market, but partnerships or government will be the large sources of funding for us.
How's the relationship with the First Nations that you're mentioning here? Are they happy to potentially have a mine there?
Yes, I think so. I think that they see the benefits, and in Quebec, I think the government and First Nations in Quebec are used to mining. I think in other jurisdictions in Canada, maybe less so, but the first few discussions that we've had with First Nations have been really trying to understand each other and see how we can coexist and make each other's lives better. So I was quite surprised how receptive the First Nations have been when we've talked to them about being on their territory.
Right. Well, let's look at some of the rocks and metals that you've brought here with you, and you can tell me more about that. So I'm seeing basically 3 pieces of metals. this one looks stained. Why is that?
So this is steel, so it's a bit rusty.
Yeah.
But if you look at the weight, unfortunately the camera can't pick up on weight. So you have steel, which is relatively heavy, and then you have titanium, which is less heavy.
Yes.
And then you have an aluminum scandium alloy, which is extremely light compared to the other two. And so this is the point that we're trying to make, is if you're making automotive parts with either steel or titanium, they're going to be quite heavy. And for the same properties of strength, you can have something in aluminum scandium that's relatively light.
We're back in the Chibougamau district, back again looking for copper here with Ernest Mass. Tell me more about it, Ernest.
So Doré Copper has a project around Chibougamau, Quebec. This is a past producing mining camp. It operated from the 1950s to 2008. It was a major producer of copper and gold. And so we have a lot of infrastructure from that previous operation. We have a mill, we have active power lines to the mill, we have road access. We're only 10 kilometers away from the town of Chibougamau. So we've detailed a project which is a relatively modest $180 million Canadian capital cost, whereby we would produce 53 million pounds per year of copper equivalent production over a mine life of 10.5 years at a very competitive cost of $2.24 per pound copper.
Are there any royalties left on the project?
On the principal Corner Bay project and the Devlin project, there are no royalties, as well as in the central camp. We do have a very large land package 60 kilometers south of Chibougamau called Joman, and about 35% of that property has a 2% NSR, but 65% of it doesn't have an NSR. We recently acquired that larger portion a few weeks ago, and we're currently doing compilation work to kind of understand what are going to be our future drill targets.
Okay. When do you think you're going to have your future drill targets?
We should have the future drill targets in a couple of months, and therefore we'd look to drill those targets towards the end of the current year. We have some additional drill targets in our, say, core land package. Previous past producing mine called Cedar Bay. It mined 3.9 million tons at 1.6% copper and 3.2 grams per ton gold. We have an exceptional target there. We call it Cedar Bay Southwest. And essentially it's a untested shear zone about 300 kilometers from the past producing mine. We're just waiting to hear from the Quebec government on some critical metals funding to help with that drill program before drilling it. But that is a very exceptional high-grade copper gold target.
How much money is it going to cost for you to answer the unanswered questions here?
Unanswered questions for the drill programs that we have, I think that would be at most a couple of $1 million. We do have upcoming a feasibility study to do, and in that feasibility study we'll essentially finalize the project as we have it currently conceived, and the cost for doing that is, say, $12 million. And with that, we would be ready to secure financing and go into construction. And the timing is pretty interesting because we're at a point now where copper's been stable for about, let's call it 6 months, at a price a little under $4 a pound, but the market hasn't been that strong. However, the copper price has held in nicely. So what we're anticipating is the next run on the copper price is actually going to bring copper to record-setting prices, and at which time we'd like to be ready to build our project, because we're going to be really one of the very few projects that are shovel-ready after our feasibility study.
So when do you think you're going to have to raise capital then? After you've drilled some or before you start?
Yeah, probably after we do a certain amount of drilling program. Now, the company is in a bit of a unique situation in that we're royalty-free. So a royalty is an option for us for financing. Plus, our two largest shareholders, between them own 54% of the company. They're committed to work towards bringing the project to production. So we're not really anticipating financing as a large challenge.
Well, I suppose a royalty is always technically an option, but is it a high probability for you? Are you talking to someone? Where is that coming from?
So we are talking to a number of actors. Now, something which happened in the last year is that we're starting to see a a number of copper projects getting royalties, and when you do the calculations, they're getting very good payment for the future metal value. Previously, we only really saw that for gold as a byproduct of a copper project, but now actually we're seeing the copper be exposed to well-paying royalties. And there's a number of firms who have approached us about that, and there's a number of examples that have been signed in the last few months that we point to as kind of indicators whereby that would be very smart to do at the current share price and the current market conditions.
So something to look out potentially for in 2024?
Correct.
Okay. So, and if that goes through, when do you think drilling starts, and when do you think you have assays out?
Our drilling program at Cedar Bay, I think that would probably start in the month of April, and then we would have results out, say, month of June. Our principal deposit is the Corner Bay deposit, and the Corner Bay deposit, we're planning also some drilling there. I think we'd do that drilling in May and then have the results out in July. Corner Bay, we've been very successful with our exploration at Corner Bay. When we acquired the deposit in 2017, we had 1.5 million tons, and we've since then increased the size of the deposit to 8.6 million tons, all while keeping the grade over 3% copper. So we're one of the very few deposits in the North America and in the world over 3% copper with 8 million tons. And our geology team have some ideas on drilling along strike, along an offset, and potential some parallel or some perpendicular zones. So drilling along strike but offset from the main deposit, where there's some potential more mineralization, and we could increase the size of Corner Bay and get it to maybe 10 million tons, which again would make it one of the very few 10 million ton plus 3% copper deposits in the world.
How much drilling do you think that's going to take?
That's going to take, I'd say 3,000 or 4,000 meters of drilling. Now, that's not in our current plans. We're going to test a couple of those hypotheses this year, and then if it's that successful, I think we would then have a lot of support in order to complete that program.
There's a whole lot happening in the Chibougamau district. Spoke to a couple of companies yesterday as well. How do you envision the future of the entire district? Do you think one of the majors comes in and consolidates it? Do you want to consolidate it? Does someone else does it? What do you think?
Yeah, there could be some consolidation. There's three different metals that are active in Chibougamau. So first is the gold-only plays, and that would be in southern Chibougamau, where there's Gold and Northern Superior. We have the Joman property in that neighborhood, where we have 6,000 hectares, the past-producing Joman mine, and some very high-grade potential, let's say in the Nohart and the Rohalt zones. So that's one area, and that if you consider Gold the major, well, maybe they consolidate the southern part. The central camp, where we're the major landholder, is principally a copper district, and we have the only mill in the district. So it's unlikely someone's going to find a mega huge porphyry, and so a major won't come in. It would be maybe a mid-tier gold company coming in, or a smaller cap copper company coming in, or it could be ourselves. If we're first to the finish line by building our mill, then the other deposits really have no recourse but to come to us and discuss treatment of their ore in our mill, because their properties aren't really big enough or robust enough to sustain its own mill. There's another company called Quebec Copper and Gold, who are about 60 kilometers away. They have a project which could be a standalone project, but they're at a much earlier stage than we are, so they have to kind of work through their studies before they get to the point where say we are.
How far out in the future do you think that consolidation is? Are we talking 1 to 3 years, or is this more a 3 to 5, or even a 5 to 10 year thing?
No, it could be definitely 1 to 3 year consolidation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Let's have a look at the rocks, because you have them here. That's why we came.
Yeah.
Tell me what I'm looking at, because it's a bunch of different colors. It's pretty much all that I know about rocks.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe you should come here. So, here we've got our Corner Bay drill core. This example is we can see it's about 3.1 meters at 9.4% copper, extremely high grade. And we have a number of other intercepts with these +8, +9% copper intercepts, and this is why Corner Bay is one of the highest grade copper deposits in North America. The top material here we see is from the Gwillim deposit. This is a gold deposit. We drilled it last year, and our best intercept was 5.3 meters at about 9.7 grams per ton gold. That was on what's known as the C vein. We have A, B, B prime, and C. We don't have a resource on Gwillim, and we've only drilled it to about 500 meters depth. So one of our tasks this year is to do some internal modeling and maybe put a couple of more holes in Gwillim at depth and potentially come up with a resource. It's very powerful when you have an operating mine and you're able to feed a Gwillim into that because all of that gold is byproduct gold, and so it's not carrying your G&A, it's not carrying your mill cost, it's just kind of like gravy, and when it's 9 gram per ton material, it's going to be extremely profitable. And then on the lower couple of rungs here, we have material from the Doré ramp exploration project, which we drilled last year. Doré ramp is located about 2.5 kilometers away from the Copper Rand mine, which was the location of the mill. And the Copper Rand mine was the biggest mine in the camp. It was 16.5 million tons at nearly 2% copper and nearly 3 grams per ton gold. It was mined from the 1950s to 2008. We do have resources there, but they're pretty deep, so we're not actively exploring that area. However, there's a number of parallel structures to Copper Rand that we're testing. The first one was Doré Ramp, and we had, I'd say, some good success at Doré Ramp. We intercepted 2.4 meters at 4.37% copper and 0.87 grams per ton gold. So pretty high grade. And then during our work there, we actually discovered a new structure, and our intercept there was 2.3 meters at about 4% copper and 3.5 grams gold, which is typical traditional central camp material where you get high copper and you get high gold. So we have so many targets and so many opportunities. We decided to bring these because these intercepts because these were some of the most recent ones. But in the future, we have work at Cedar Bay, we have work at Gwillim, we have work at Joman, and we have work at Corner Bay.
Looking at the core from Doré, so on the lower ranks, it's all different types of rocks. Again, all I know about it is colors, but does that make the mineralogy or the mineralization more complex?
Not at all. In fact, it's the opposite. So when we look at the mineralization that we have at Corner Bay, Doré Ramp, Cedar Bay, Devlin, it's semi-massive sulfides. And then the host rock around the mineralization essentially is either a dike, or it's an anorthositic, or a tonalite, a type of rock which is barren. So when we're doing our separation, there's very high recoveries of the mineralization because it's not disseminated. We don't get this kind of intricate mixing of our mineralization with waste. And therefore it makes the processing actually easier. And from a mining point of view, having these distinct rocks, which are very hard and competent, it's a big advantage for underground mining because you're less worried about geotechnical issues as you're operating.
All right, well, Ernest, thank you so much for the overview. I'll be following along, and hopefully we can talk, in the summer to get some updates?
Yes, sure. Yeah, my pleasure, and thanks for taking the time to interview us at PDAC 2024.
All right, MTB Metals, what is that, mountain bike metals? What does that stand for?
Well, it used to be called Mountain Boy Minerals. It was named after one of the historic mines in the Stewart area of British Columbia, but we just shortened it to basically the trading symbol.
You've just drilled 2,000 meters, made a discovery on the first drill program in the Golden Triangle. What I was wondering about is that the Golden Triangle has been looked at extensively throughout the years, many decades. How did they miss this?
Well, a very good question, and there's a very good answer for it, and that is it wasn't missed in a way that the property that we've now control was explored by at least 50 different companies. We have reports from 50 companies that have looked at it, but they were all looking at little bits and pieces of it. And when we looked at the information from all those different reports, started putting it all together, we recognized it's not a bunch of small occurrences, it's one big geological system. So we consolidated the ground in early 2021. There were multiple property holders that we put all the pieces together. We staked some ground in between that was open. And for the first time ever, we looked at it as one big geological system. And once we recognized that it was a big system, we could approach it from a totally different perspective. And that led to the discovery. We did 3 years of really good field work over the summers, leading to the drill program. And when we drilled it, our very first hole, we had 127 meters of 0.38 copper equivalent, which is right in the realm of operating mines in British Columbia on the very first hole. Now, investors wanted more than that, and so it led to a sell-off in the shares. It's such a terrible market. Investors are looking for results that are just basically unachievable. So the sell-off brought the share price down to 3.5 cents. It's a screaming buy at this price. The majors that take the time to look at this, and I have to say at PDAC here, most of the majors are here, and I think by now we've had discussions with pretty much all of them. They're all very, very, very interested in what we have here because they recognize the significance of it. The grade in that first hole is not representative of the overall system. We clipped the edge of it on the first hole, which getting that in the first hole into a big system was a major accomplishment. So the majors recognize that, they see the potential, and they're very interested in doing some kind of a deal with us.
Are anyone coming up to your project this year to look at it more closely with the majors?
Well, we're hoping between now and the start of the summer season, we've got our drill core at Stewart. It's accessible year-round. And we're hoping that the intermediate step is going to be a visit to the drill core in Stewart. And then by mid-June, we should be able to start taking various companies directly up to the site.
But essentially you're going to need a major or someone else to step in to help you drill this thing, right? Because it's big, market cap's not too high, so I don't assume it's easy to raise capital right now for you.
It would be very challenging to raise enough money to do the job that this project needs. We've got a tiger by the tail. This is a really massive system. It's huge, it's got potential for really good grades. It needs a serious work program at this stage. And that's the best fit for that is one of the major mining companies.
Right. You say the stock is a screaming buy right now. Are you buying it?
To the extent that I can, yes. I wish I could buy more.
That's a fair point. Let's look at some of the rocks, and you can tell me more about what you found. What do you have here?
The best person to talk about the rocks is Lucia Tanney, our VP Exploration, and Lucia,
all right, Lucia,
to talk about the rocks.
Right. Let's look at the rocks. Let's talk about it. Let's see what what have you brought with you.
So this is some select core from our first hole. And what I really like about this hole is we're seeing a really beautiful breccia. So this breccia is showing us a high energy system, and the matrix that's coming in and infill is all chalcopyrite. Some of the really notable mineralogy that you're going to see in here is the potassium feldspar, secondary biotite, and the actinolite. So this is hot, and that's what you want to see. A really other interesting notable feature of this hole is we had a bunch of nested porphyries. So we had these like megacrystic porphyritic rocks, and then we had other porphyritic intrusions coming in and nesting upon them. So we're seeing an evolving magma, which gives you time for a system to become really fertile.
Right.
So that's what we're seeing here. Above this, we also had supergene enrichment. So we're seeing a chalcocite blanket on fractures for 10s to 30s of meters above it.
Right. So it's sort of like a buried hand. Those are the fingers, and there's a blanket on top of that. You don't have the blanket with you, but you basically have the fingers of the system with you.
That's right.
Okay, fair enough. I do see that some of the rock is broken down. What's that mean? You know, you walk around here at PDAC, you look at a lot of the rocks are just sort of one pipe. Yours is broken down. How come?
Yeah, I mean, these rocks are old, and it's in a pretty structurally complex area. So there's been a lot of faulting in the area, which makes the rocks brittle. So those are all fractures that had happened in place over time.
Does that make your exploration efforts more challenging in terms of losing holes or something going wrong?
Luckily, we brought in a drill contractor, Helm, and they had a lot of experience at Galore. So they kind of knew, well, they did know exactly what they were getting into. So they did a very good job drilling for us.
Okay, fair enough. There's an interesting looking... Oh, is there a royalty, by the way, on that project as of now?
There's
a small royalty on one piece of the property. So about 20% of the overall property has a royalty that can be bought down to 1%. The rest of it is pretty much royalty-free. We have 100% of the balance of the property.
The prospector still holds that royalty, or like who's that royalty?
It's a prospector, yes, that originally held the property.
Fair enough. Okay, well, MTB Metals, it'd be interesting to see what happens this summer, but thank you both for your time.
Thank you for following us.
But I'm here with VP of X for Snowline Gold Corp, Thomas Branson. Finally, looking at the rocks in real life. What do you have here? What are we looking at, Tom?
So this is 2 boxes from hole 37, which we drilled this past season. We're looking at coarse grain granodiorite with multiple sets of quartz veins running through the rocks, and the quartz veins are what host the gold mineralization. We see little specks of VG hosted within the quartz veins. These little red or orange flags are where the gold mineralization was noted by geologists, and this core is wet here, and it just helps show the texture of the rocks. This box is polished, so you don't need to wet the core for the shine to show. But in here you can see we've got lots of quartz veins cutting through the rocks, which is a rather high density for this kind of system, a reduced intrusion related gold system. And with that, the corresponding grades, which are probably why you're here, is the veins host the mineralization, and the higher vein density is what's bringing in these higher grades to the deposit.
Companies typically bring out their best looking core. Most of them have like crazy looking colors, 5 different types of core. Yours looks, I don't want to call it boring, but exactly.
Yeah, you could walk over this pretty easily and have it be like, okay, it's just a countertop granite. And for this, no, it's the quartz veins that really bring in the gold mineralization, and what makes Valley special is the high density of quartz veins.
So you want it to look boring?
Well, it's I think from even a mining standpoint, boring is good. Lots of people that have come to site say boring is good. So it's very consistent, and that's another feature of Valley, is that we have a lot of consistency between holes, and the grades are also very consistent and continuous, which you want to see in a mineral system.
And this is pretty much, so is this representative of the entire system and the things that you're drilling? Because Snowline is much more than just Valley. You're potentially making a new discovery north from Valley too, I believe. So
we have, probably, I don't know the exact number, but it's about a dozen similar reduced intrusion related targets on our road project alone. And we'll be looking to drill those this season. And it's, I forget the part of the question there.
This is what it's all going to look like, basically.
We've, I don't know if you know Quentin Henning.
Yes.
Yeah, he came to site, and we had just a rock on the desk and another rock from our Cujo target, and they looked almost identical. He was blown away that the rocks from Valley look exactly like the rocks at Cujo. Right. And we see similar veins at Cujo and some of our other targets. We drilled a Reed target last year as well, similar veins, and both Cujo and Reed had visible gold in them, and 6 of our 7 first pass drill programs. The only program on this map that hasn't had we've drilled at Anderson, Rogue, and Tosh and Cliff, and on 7 different targets, I believe, and 6 of them have had visible gold in their first pass drilling in phase 1 programs, which is pretty remarkable.
I'm just going to assume Valley's your favorite target because of the grade, but what's the second favorite?
That's a good one. I think our new Aurelius target's pretty exciting, and I think that one's, I'm excited to drill that one this season.
Oh, okay, interesting. What I noticed, though, is that this looks like a very sort of continuous rock. It's relatively heavy. Is this easy to drill? Is this easier than what you've previously worked on?
For drilling?
Yes.
We average about 50 meters a day in production. That's day and night drilling. over the season. That's sort of been our average the last couple of seasons, and it's relatively hard rock. On our Jupiter target, on the Einarson project, it almost doubled the rate of drilling, but it's a lot softer. So the drillers like it because they get more production, but it's also, that's another exciting, that's probably number 3 on my list, Jupiter.
What does that mean when it's softer rock?
It's just the relative hardness, and at Jupiter, I think part of the softness is it's within an alteration footprint of the mineralization, so it's sort of weakened the bonds between the rocks and the chemicals.
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant. What does it mean, the fact that it has weakened the bonds? What does that mean in terms of mineralization? Does it allow it to come up more easy? Is it better for...
Well, it's pretty complicated, I guess, but you have a fault or a structure, and then the fluids can kind of travel along that, and then they percolate out into the system, and that kind of weakens the rock. So it's a bit of the faulting doing it, but also fluids pervading into the wall rock.
Perfect. Well, hopefully next year when you're here, you have some core from Aurelius. That'd be very nice to see.
If we have some success there, we'd definitely be showing it off. So.
Thank you for your time, Tom.
No problem.
Are you advancing a gold project in Ghana, West Africa? Newcore Gold. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so Newcore Gold, TSX listed. We trade on the OTC as well. We're advancing the Enchi project in Ghana. It's a district scale exploration project that's fundamentally underpinned by very robust economics that we put out in a PEA in 2021. We're in the process of updating that PEA. We'll have it out in the first half of this year. It's going to include a larger resource, but also a number of things that we did to de-risk the project. At that point, we're then looking to take it towards a construction decision and ultimately put it into production given the robust economics that the project has.
I heard a couple of dozen stories over the last couple of days. A lot of them say or claim district scale. Do you mean it?
Yeah, so if you look at Ghana as a country, it's Africa's largest gold producer. 200 million ounces of gold have historically been discovered in Ghana. If you look at where we're situated in the southwest corner of Ghana, we've got a number of 5 million ounce plus deposits that sit along trend from us. So 40 kilometers to the north, you've got Chirano at 5.5 million ounce historical endowment, Bibiani at 6.5, and then you've got one of Newmont's 2 producing mines in country, the Ahafo mine, which has an endowment of 20 million ounces. So we've really just scratched the surface in terms of our exploration. If you look at the pits that currently constrain our resource, they're only down to about 80 meters. If you look at a number of these other deposits, they'll stretch anywhere down to 800 meters to 1,000 meters in depth and are producing down at those levels. So at 80 meters, we're still really focused on the oxide transition, heap leachable material near surface. So yes, we've got a lot of district scale exploration across our project.
How many meters have gone into the project so far?
So in the last 3 years, we've done the largest ever drill campaign on the project. We've drilled 95,000 meters. Historically, we've done, previous to that, about 100,000 meters. So we're pushing about 200,000 meters of drilling across the project to date.
What do you have to do this year round, and do you have the money to answer your unanswered questions?
Yeah, so from a capital structure perspective, we again are listed on the TSX, traded on the OTC QX, about 173 million shares outstanding, and we've got about $4 million in the bank today. So we're fully covered to complete the PEA that I mentioned, as well as a lot of other work across the overall project.
How many drills? Because I see pictures behind you. There's 2 drills. Are you thinking multiple drills this year?
So from a drilling perspective, we completed the updated resource that we put out last year. We're now taking all of that information, we're putting it into the updated PEA, so larger overall resource will be incorporated into that updated PEA. And then we will look at drilling on the back of getting those results out and really use the information we gather to be able to prioritize the next set of drill results the next set of drill targets that we want to focus on.
Are there any royalties on your project right now?
Yeah, so the government of Ghana has a 5% royalty across the country. We then have about we have a 2% royalty that Triple Flag has as well. So 7% royalty total.
You don't have a royalty yourself?
No, like as in me personally?
Yes.
No, I don't have a royalty personally.
Your wife doesn't either?
No, my wife doesn't either.
Fair point. You've also brought a rock with you. Only one. How did you pick this one? Why is this here?
Yeah, so this is an example of of a quartz vein. So we've got, if you look at our project, you've got the main Bibiani shear that runs to the west of our project. You then get these second and third order splays that go through the project, and this is from one of those splays that goes through our project. It's a quartz vein, so it's an example of where some of the high grade material sits on our project.
Right, and then after this, because you mentioned drilling, what else are you hoping to? What else do you want to make out of this project post PEA?
Well, so we're ultimately pushing it to a construction decision, and then we'll look to take it into production. It's a very low capex project, so about $100 million to bring it into production. That'll produce a roughly, if you look at the 2021 PEA, 100,000 ounces at an $18.50 gold price. You're looking at an after-tax NPV of about $300 million. So very robust economics for the project. We're obviously updating that with a larger resource. So a lot of the work that we're going to be focusing on is work that's required to take it to a production decision. So metallurgical test work. Last week we announced an environmental and social baseline study, which is one of the key things to feed a mining license. We're doing a lot of geotech and hydrological test work across the project, which again is crucial to move a project towards a production decision. We're also doing additional met test work. So all of that work will then feed us taking this to a construction decision. So that's the big focus for us.
Once you get there, do you bring it into production, or you bring someone else to bring it into production?
Inevitably, the work that we're doing is work that will allow us to take it into production. So we're not cutting corners. We're not trying to dress this company up to sell. Because it is such a low capex project, it is something that we can bring into production ourselves. We're very well backed by deep-pocketed institutional investors who recognize the value in the project and want to see us put it into production. But inevitably, as you move a project towards production, there'll be a chance that we get approached by a mid-cap or major company who goes, we like the economics, you fully de-risked it on our behalf, and we'll take it into production, and ultimately, that's something that could happen down the road.
Is that a guess, or is someone else already snooping around?
So management and board, we own 20% of Newcore, so we're truly aligned with shareholders. We've got skin in the game, and we keep all of our options open. So, we obviously have lots of conversations going with various strategic potential partners, companies who may want to buy the project at some stage. We also obviously focus a lot on the retail market, investors who want to buy the stock in the market, and then we've got a great list of institutional shareholders as well who obviously continue to support the company. So we keep all of those options open, for us as shareholders, but obviously for all of our shareholders, to ultimately try to create the most value possible.
All right, Luco, it's been a pleasure. When's the next time you and I are speaking? When do you have something more to say?
So the big upcoming catalyst is the updated PEA that I've kind of mentioned a couple of times in the last few minutes. So that's something that we'll obviously be talking a lot about once that comes out in the next few months.
All right, well, that's the end of day two. Not too many takeaways so far, besides wear comfortable shoes, because I've got blisters on every single one of my toes, all 7 of them. Just kidding, it's not that bad, but not comfy either. Today I saw policemen on horses in downtown Toronto, right, like close to the conference, which is kind of cool. I like horses, but I don't get to see too many of them. In the conference, I tried a few uranium companies today, but either the CEO wasn't there, or when he was, he didn't want to do an unprepared interview, which is really, again, a recurring answer. Same as yesterday, basically. Did a couple of interviews, but asked more than a dozen companies for one. Same answer. Either no, I'm not the right guy, or I don't know, I'm too tired. One of them said, I just flew in. Is this taking out? No. Or, people saying, oh, no, I want the questions first. And mind you, I'm not charging for these interviews. I'm not being aggressive or anything like that. I'm not selling anything, nothing. Just basically looking for a conversation about the rocks. As I don't get to see too many of those either. But yeah, Energy Fuels CEO wasn't there, unfortunately, at least when I passed by the booth. But they did bring yellow donuts though, so that was kind of a nice touch. And I think more companies should bring food because food is good. I like food. There's no free food at PDAC. You have to pay for everything. But yeah, I've got dinner was nice yesterday. I had yeah, the food is getting a better grade now. Still expensive though, but it's better than a 6 out of 7. I think yeah, I'd definitely give it an 8 based on last night because we went to the Keg, apparently some kind of a famous Canadian restaurant. They call it corporate or whatever. I don't know. I liked it. I thought it was very good. I typically don't go to that class of restaurants, so I thought it was good. 2 dinners tonight, actually. One not as fancy with a couple of just friends who I don't get to see often, so that's going to be nice. 2 cocktail parties too, I suppose. So another 4-hour night here ahead of me. Everyone is kind of smarter than me, richer than me, which kind of concerns me, but it also keeps me going though, I guess, because it means that I have a whole lot more room to go. And to get there, I guess, sort of a main takeaway here, maybe from today as well, I guess, to get there, geology matters a lot, okay? Because these people, often the CEOs, will try to sort of gauge your level of knowledge and work around that, if you will. Essentially, I don't want to call it lying, but essentially giving you what you want to hear. And if your geological knowledge is stronger, then you can come back with a question like, what about the metallurgy, or what about the structural controls? But then the catch is that you also have to understand the answer to those questions because they're prepared to those questions as well. Okay, so those type of questions to maybe help you better understand the story. So I have a lot of catching up to do. That's my main takeaway when I'm back home. And hopefully I can bring in a couple of interviews around geology soon as well. But there's some multiple free courses online from many sources. There's a couple of those linked on resourcetalks.com. They're free. Nobody's charging for that. No registration needed and all that. So you can go watch there. So here's a quick plug. But yeah, that's day 2. Now on to day 3, I guess. All right, Craig, I walked by Dr. Peter McGough's face, caught my attention, and he started telling me about Prismo Metals. Go on, tell me more.
Yes, Prismo is a relatively new company. We have 2 projects in Mexico. We founded the company on those 2 projects. One I brought to the company, and the other one Dr. McGough brought to the company. So since then, we've acquired a 3rd project in Arizona. The original projects were gold and silver in Mexico, as I said, and the Arizona project is largely copper.
So what's the focus right now, Mexico or Arizona?
Right now, the focus and most of the interest is on the copper project. We're getting a lot of activity here at the booth. Everybody's coming to see what we have there. It's kind of one of the strong points we have going right now.
And you want to drill that this year, or do you have to come up with drill targets still?
Well, we've got some historic drilling, and that shows skarn mineralization, so we know it's there at depth. And we also did an airborne geophysical survey, a CTEM survey that shows a low resistivity anomaly at depth. So we have a target. We're doing drill permitting right now, and we're basically getting ready to drill the thing in summer, more or less.
How's money?
We need to finance that. We have some funding for the other projects in Mexico, but this larger drill program in Arizona will have to finance that. And we're in the process of looking for financing right now.
Okay, do you already have an idea as to how you're going to finance it and where you're going to go looking for the money? Why I'm asking this is because sub $10 million market cap right now, not much love for these stories out there. So yeah, how are you going to finance?
Well, we have some investors that were with us basically from the start. So we have a couple of groups that we financed with before, and we also have a strategic investment agreement with a company called Vizsla Silver, which has a large project in Mexico that surrounds us on 3 sides. So Vizsla has been a strong supporter of us in the past, and we think they'll probably come in and support drilling at least on one of the Mexican projects to free up funds for the Arizona project.
You're thinking Dr. Peter McGough might also be looking to increase position?
Yeah, well, he's here in the project right now helping with getting the story out. And Alain Lambert, the other founder, is more in the capital market. So they're working strongly at this event. And that's what we're here for at the PDAC, is to get the word out and try to get some finance.
How's PDAC been for you so far?
Been pretty good. It's well attended this year. It's not that it's not as much as a few years ago. It was very strong, but it's probably the best one since the pandemic, I think, and a pretty positive outlook by the people, even with a sort of a negative year to look back on. But I think people think it's going to be getting better.
But so worth the booth spent, basically.
Yeah, it's been well spent. I think the time's well spent, and a lot of people have come by.
Okay, and then if you find the money, how many meters do you think you're putting in? When's drilling start? When are you going to have assays out?
Our goal is to do about 5,000 meters at the Hot Breccia project in Arizona, and the goal is to do that in this summer, end of the second quarter, beginning of the third quarter.
Okay, so you're thinking assay results, 6 to 8 weeks after that, so sort of end of the third quarter, September-ish, something like that?
Yeah, something like that. Right now, the labs aren't really busy. It might be a little bit quicker, but we usually look at that kind of a turnaround. So yeah, third quarter, starting to get assays trickling in from the first holes.
Well, let's look at some of the rocks that you brought here, Craig, because there's some interesting stuff. There's some magnetite that I saw earlier. This is the project you're going to be drilling, right?
Yes, this is the Hot Breccia project. It's very interesting. The namesake breccia here. It's basically a pebble dike with all kinds of different lithologies mixed up in it. There's fragments of intrusive rocks, some of the host rocks for the skarn at depth. And what we have here is an interesting piece of magnetite skarn that has brought up as a fragment in one of the intrusions. Copper rich. We have some XRF analysis, which aren't really all that indicative other than to show we have copper. We have assays or analyses with the XRF ranging from anomalous up to 20% copper. And again, that's just small areas. It's not going to be a 20% copper in the whole sample, but we should have some assays on this probably within 3 weeks or so. These are just going into the lab this week.
What does the presence of magnetite do for your metallurgy here?
Well, it's not a problem with the metallurgy. This magnetite's good for two things. One, it shows your proximal skarn, or you're right in next to the intrusive that formed the ore deposit. And the second thing, it's magnetic. You can see it with geophysics, so it helps you identify your targets and focus on where to look with less drilling.
That's what you told me previously, so that's basically what the targets are going to be based on, geophysics, because they show you where the magnetite is.
Yeah, the geophysics will focus in on a target. We have the airborne survey, which gives you very broad geophysics. And before drilling, we may do a ground geophysics program that kind of focuses in, gives you more discrete targets, so you can do less drilling to focus in on the best areas.
Good. Well, I like news stories. We should do this again, but then talk a little bit more in depth. But I really appreciate your time here at the PDAC.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, John Sebastian. Niobium. You're pretty much the only company, I believe, at PDAC that's doing this. Tell me more about it.
Yeah, there's very little. So I think that's probably the only booth that you will see two niobium project in one booth. So we have the Crevier project based in Quebec, which is a niobium tantalum project.
What are those? Let me interrupt you. Niobium, tantalum, what's that?
Yeah, niobium, first of all, those are critical minerals. And those two are on the list of the critical minerals for Canada and many countries. So why niobium? Because they're rare. It's rare. There's only 3 mines, 2 in Brazil, 1 in Quebec, and we're looking to open the 4th one. And niobium has been used for many years for the steel industry. In fact, this is the main, let's say, the main market for niobium. So you create a concentrate, you produce a concentrate, and you convert it to a ferroniobium product, which we have samples here. But let's say the other 15%, it's now, and that 15 just increasing because the niobium has been used for battery on the anode side, I will say 3 years ago, and now they're using it on the cathode side. So that's the reason why there's a kind of a buzz around niobium. So now that you can see people that are looking for niobium there. We had people from Austria, we have people from Japan, They're following us on those two projects. So that's a niobium tantalum project we have, and we have another one, the James Bay project based in Ontario. The James Bay project is a little bit on hold because we have been stopped by the First Nation up there, Musqueam First Nation. But we will see how it goes because there's a new chief, there's a new half of the council is new. We're going to keep working with them. We're trying to find a solution because at the end of the day, that for sure, if we do something there, we're going to do something with them. So we would love to have them as a partner and move that project. But that project was a kind of the crown, the jewel of the crown, and that's the reason why when they stopped us, the stock price was at $1 after the first drilling program, and then when they stopped us, the stock price fell to 15 cents. So, so one of my job, I'm the CEO and the president of the company for the last 2 years. One of my job was to, first of all, trying to solve the issue at James Bay. Try to put some more money and put some love on the Crevier project because Crevier was a kind of a it was on the side because everything was on James Bay. But now we have more good grades and we have more news on that. So that makes an interesting project too. So I'm rebalance it. Having that Crevier, and we just purchased the Foothill project 3 weeks ago. We took an option on it, and this is a titanium and phosphate project, and in a very nice area between Quebec City, in Quebec along the San Lorenzo River, and the area is very easy to access. And you know what? I really like that one too. So, but we're playing only with 4 critical minerals: niobium, tantalum, titanium, and phosphate. But for sure, the big push and the big play for us, it's niobium, and there's a big positive vibe around niobium, and we're lucky. We've been there for many years in that sector, and we have solid support. The Osisco Group owns 24%, Caisse de Dépôt, which is a Quebec pension plan, 9%. And it's a very old company, was created in 1954 and was put on the stock exchange in Montreal a long time ago.
Wow.
So we're celebrating our 70th anniversary. Okay. So it's a solid company. Yes, the share it's not where we want, but I think we're improving. We're adding project, we're adding news, and I think 2024 will be a good year for NioBay.
Why do you think it's going to be a good year for your company specifically, though? What are you doing?
Because we're going to put some time, and we're going to put effort on the exploration for rutile on the foothills next summer. And we're going to be able to release some news on that. And then we're going to continue and see how things will go. And I will prepare a new PEA for that one, Crevier, since we have found some new zones, some new ore, and at a better grade. So we're going to do a new PEA on that one. Okay.
So how many meters do you think you have to drill before you can have that PEA ready?
To me, for now, I'm done. I have enough drill. I have enough information. It's just a matter and a question of time. And that's very new. We released our last press release last Thursday. So we need to bring all that information with the old information we had and put it all together. So that's something that we're going to do after PDAC and for the next few weeks.
Question of time, but a question of money too, though, right?
Yeah, no.
How's money?
So money, we have a little bit less than 3 million in the bank account, but so far so good. We have quite a good support. We will probably raise some money later during the year, but we will see. I don't need cash. I can do all my job for Foothill next summer with the cash I have in hand. So, now we need to tell the story. There's a good information that just came, and we need to just explain what niobium can do for the people, and I think with that the stock will improve. But for sure, there's a huge opportunity there at 6 cents when the stock was at 1, and people realize that can be the fourth niobium mine in the world. So
how much are you running for G&E? How much money do you think to keep the lights on?
You know what? Since I'm inside the Osisco office, my overhead is very low, because when I need a metallurgist, I just take one from the Osisco group, and he's going to work for me 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. I'm going to pay for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or a month. So my CFO, I'm sharing my CFO. So the cash I have and the cash I raise, I use that cash for the exploration. So there's
so the 3 million you have.
Yeah, we can rely on that one for until 2025, depending of the effort that we're going to put on Foothill. And an interesting thing, we're gonna speak with a IA firm. We're going to put some intelligence, a new artificial intelligence on Crevier, because we have lots of information, and we think that we can also improve the knowledge on Crevier by using that technology. So that's going to cost a little bit of money, of course. So that's why I'm saying that I would be okay up to 2025. Yeah.
Is there a royalty on Crevier?
No royalty on that one. There's a royalty on this one, and this one, Osisco Gold royalty owns 2% that we can buy half of it. It's same for this one, 2.5%, and I can buy 1%.
So Osisco owns both of those royalties?
No, this one it's a VR, and this one it's Osisco Gold.
I'm just checking if you personally own those royalties, so I'm good with that.
No, so, and I would say on that one, there's no royalty, which is perfect. But keep in mind that this one, we own 73% of this one. So the 27 has been owned. It's owned by the NioBay mine.
Okay.
So,
yeah. You have some core with you and some interesting stones. Let's look at it. What do you have? What have you brought with you?
So what I brought, that's coming from the latest drilling program, which is pegmatite. Inside of that pegmatite, you have the pyrochlore, and that's the mineral that we're looking for. Inside that pyrochlore, you have the tantalum and the niobium. So this, that's brand new. I also brought some a piece of core from Foothill, which is solid ilmenite.
Why is it black? It's just pure black.
It's pure black. It's a solid ilmenite. So and at 40% titanium, which is very good. So, but I'm looking for ilmenite and rutile as well. So rutile is a little bit grayish compared to the ilmenite. But
when I hear those metals that you don't typically hear about, niobium, tantalum, and all these things, metallurgy is the first thing that pops to mind. Is because you find them at many different places, but how do you separate them? Is that a problem for you?
We have done a lot of work on the Crevier, and we released a news beginning of 2023, and we have improved our. That's why I was saying that I changed the flow sheet. Because we changed the way to process the ore, and we improved the recovery by a lot by doing that. But that's true. That's something that you need to take care of. It's the metallurgy. Money is there. I will tell you that money is on the recovery, but the thing is, every deposit are different. You know, we're dealing with niobium, but this one is super different than James Bay.
The recovery rates are also different. You told me Crevier gets 60%.
And this one over 73.
Can you, well, those are not amazing recoveries. Like, they could definitely be better, right?
Yeah,
Can
yeah,
you
for
improve
sure.
on them?
Yeah, we can improve that one. We can improve that one too. But for now, that was enough to keep going and to work on the other aspect of the project. So, but we were able to hit 80%. But I want to be conservative. So some people say, oh, yeah, you always throw big numbers and blah blah blah. No. So I'm very conservative on that.
Well, Jean-Sébastien, this was great. Thank you so much for the overview. We should sit down for a longer interview, but I appreciate your time here at the PDAC.
Pleasure. Let's meet another time.
All right, Carolina, Russia. I saw some news in January that the market didn't like, and in a couple of weeks you had some news that the market did like. What's happening here, Lotan?
Hi. So we are drilling at the Brewer Gold Copper Project in South Carolina. It's a former gold oxide mine. The first gold rush in all of North America was right here in the Carolinas. We are exploring, it's a high sulfidation epithermal system, and we believe it's a very large porphyry target. So we've only drilled 25 holes since we started exploring in late 2020. We've only reported 2 of those 25 holes. Hole 18 that we reported on in January that you just mentioned, us new understanding gold and copper mineralization under the former mine. The former mine was very shallow. It only went to about 65 meters depths. The hole that we reported last week, hole 21, is our best hole to date. And we intercepted in that almost 63 meters of about 8.5 grams per ton gold and about 0.25% copper. And within that, there was a 16-meter interval of 3 grams per ton gold, approximately, and 1% copper. And I highlight that because we do think that this system has a lot of potential for copper in addition to gold.
You say it's hole 18 to hole 21. What's happening in between 19 and 20?
Well, one of the challenges of being a relatively small company with a very limited drilling budget is that with a very large system that's relatively underexplored, is that the holes that we have, we are putting in different target areas because we're still trying to understand the potential in those various target areas. So for example, holes 18, 19, and 20, which were the first holes of this 8-hole program, were all drilled collared to the west of the former mine, angled under the mine, drilled to the east, right? So we're testing that mineralization that we found during our first drill program in 2020 and 2021 under the mine. Then we went to the south to test a new target. Hole 15 from our previous program found a brand new area of mineralization 150 meters south of the mine that no one's ever looked at before. It's where the former waste dump was when it was an operating oxide gold mine. And to condemn that area, they only drilled 30-meter deep holes, very shallow. And so when we drilled hole 15 and we found a really nice intercept of more than 60 meters of more than 1 gram gold with some copper, we thought, wow, this could be something. It took us 2 years to raise money for this most recent drill program. And so after we finished 18, 19, and 20, we went down to the south and we drilled holes 21 and 22 to test that hole 15 target. So last week's news about hole 21, which was our best drill result ever, is particularly important because it's in a brand new discovery zone that no one's ever found before, and it's open in all directions. So we're very excited about that, in addition to the gold and copper that we've already been exploring for and finding underneath the old mine.
I liked hole 18 too. The market didn't like it. What do you think? What am I missing?
It's hard for me to explain the market. I think it's been particularly difficult for the recent past, particularly for junior mining companies. Having said that, I do think that a lot of our existing shareholders and people who are watching us gave us some feedback that they were quite encouraged by that hole. So it's hard for me to answer your question vis-a-vis kind of share price performance, but nonetheless, I think no one disagrees that hole 18 is actually quite significant because it helps expand the gold copper mineralization that we already knew existed, and it gives us that third dimension, right? And we better understand the geometry of that mineralization.
Yeah, I I understand that. Now you're saying that you're looking for a big porphyry. Big porphyries like hiding, and they like hiding deep. How much money is it going to cost you before you can answer that unanswered question?
It's an excellent question. One thing I'd like to say right away is that I'm not a geologist. We have a very strong technical team, and my understanding in talking with our technical team is that in the case of Brewer, because not all porphyries are the same, and sure they do often exist deep. In our case, we think we're relatively lower in the system, meaning we think that the actual porphyry is not that deep in this particular case. We do have a diagram I'm happy to speak to, but we've had lots of independent experts actually come to our site and look at our alteration model, our geochemistry, some geophysics that we've done, and of course our geology. And there is a kind of a growing consensus that we may be lower in the system, meaning that the porphyry might not be that deep from surface in our case. Your question about how much does it cost? Certainly drilling a deeper hole can be cost prohibitive for a smaller company. One tool that we really do intend to use, and we have been using, is geophysics. In 2022, we did a dipole IP survey, a very large one, and it gave us excellent information on both resistivity and chargeability, and we saw some very strong anomalies. However, it only was able to look down approximately 250 meters. So in the case of a porphyry, we probably need to look down, ideally, let's say 1 kilometer. So right now, we're planning to raise more money. We have an abundance of drill targets in this new southern discovery zone. But our sort of 2-track plan with those new funds is to drill and to conduct a deeper looking geophysical survey that would allow us, ideally, to better vector in on and hone in on where is that porphyry.
You say you're going to be raising capital. Are you thinking just a traditional capital raise, or do you have any alternative ways of raising capital too?
We're always open to whatever possibilities may exist. However, a more traditional, as you say, private placement has been something that has worked quite positively for us in the past. And it's true that Hole 21 got a lot of attention, both in our share price and in the market, but there's just generally more interest right now. So I would like to think that a private placement would be possible.
Are you on BLM ground? Because you're in the U.S., I think you have to deal with BLM and federal, or what's that in your case?
There are some states, Nevada comes to mind, where that is the truth. We're in the eastern part of the U.S. We're in the Carolinas, North Carolina, South Carolina. There is no BLM. And in particular, Brewer is currently controlled by the government. And by government, there's a federal agency and a state agency. But it's in receivership, meaning the government doesn't want to own this, and they actually would love it to be a new mine. The state of South Carolina is very pro-mining. And if you look at the Hale Gold Mine, which is operated by Oceana Gold Corporation, it's only 15 minutes down the road from Brewer, and it has at least 4 million ounces, I believe, if not more. They have an open pit that's operating, and they've just started mining underground. So they're proving that it's possible to permit a nice, big, modern hard rock gold mine in South Carolina. In our case, as we're in this receivership phase where we're exploring, we have an exclusive option to buy Brewer. It's 1,000 acres. So it's not BLM and it's not privately owned. It's kind of the best situation. So we have no option payments, and we have full rights to explore there, and the permitting is very streamlined. If we choose to buy it, then we can then purchase that property and then go through the normal permitting processes to put a new mine in place.
Okay. What permits do you need to do what you want to do in 2024, though?
It's very simple. The way that it works for us for exploring at Brewer, under the option agreement we have with the receiver, is that we need to inform the South Carolina regulator, which is called Department of Health and Environmental Control, or DHEC. We have a great relationship with them. We need to inform them where we're going to drill, the depth, the angle, the length, and then they approve it. It's a very straightforward process. We do need to, and we do abandon all those holes, but that's it. It's really nice.
So you basically have to come up with a plan as to how many holes, how many meters. Do you have that plan right now?
For the next phase?
Yes.
We haven't finalized the plan, but one thing I'm confident in telling you is that this new southern tenured zone, and if you think about it, and we can show a map, I guess, of hole 15, hole 21 and 22, this area is what we want to systematically drill out.
Okay.
Possibly on a grid basis.
Right.
And so to produce that plan would be very easy because we know exactly where we want to drill.
In terms of, why I'm asking that is because I'm thinking if, in terms of permitting, how many drill pads do you think they're going to let you drill, or do you think that that's not necessarily going to be an issue? Like you can do as many drill pads as you need.
That we can do as many as we need. Again, we've been exploring there since 2020. We have great relationship, so there's no issue with the number of holes, as long as we do it properly and according to the regulations, and then we have properly abandoned the holes, which we've been doing.
It is year-round drilling,
yes.
But there's preferences as to when you're going to drill. When do you think you can start drilling?
Well, the good news about where we are is literally we can drill 365 days a year, and that's in terms of weather and other conditions. The summer it's a little more humid, but it does nothing to slow down the drilling.
Okay. When do you want to drill, ideally? Tomorrow?
As soon as we raise money. And I can tell you this, we work with an excellent drilling contractor called FTE Drilling out of Quebec. They have been really great to work with. There is currently a drill rig at site, the same drill rig that drilled these holes, including 21. It's sitting there right now. All they need is a couple weeks notice and they will send the crew back. So let's say we close a financing, we can be drilling within 2 weeks.
That's a very good overview, Leighton. You've also brought some rocks here with you. Do you want to talk about the rocks, or do you want to make Patrick talk about them?
Can we do a quick pause and I'll bring...
All right, Patrick, so what is this here? I mean, it looks like silver to me. Like, you can lie to me and tell me it's silver. I probably believe you, but what is it?
Well, these are some pretty exciting new intersections that we just reported last week. This is from our hole 21, which intersected 62.5 meters of 8.5 grams per ton and 0.3% copper. What's one kind of exciting part of this zone is we intersected this strong telluride, gold telluride mineralization kind of at the base of that structure. So this kind of 2.5 meter interval within that 62 meters ran about 170 grams per ton. So this very shiny, silvery mineral that you're seeing here is actually some type of gold telluride. We haven't identified exactly which telluride it is, but we know that it carries a lot of gold and a fair bit of silver. So this is really exciting, not only in terms of the metal content, but also because it's part of a new zone discovered 150 meters south of the former mine.
Right.
So also within that intersection is a more copper-gold rich signature here. So you can see this beautiful kind of dark bluish gray mineral, which is chalcocite. Okay. So this kind of zone within that 62 meters is about a 17-meter sub-interval that ran about 1% copper and nearly 3 grams per ton gold.
And the silvery mineral here, what's that?
The kind of brassy mineral is just pyrite, yes. And the bluish silver mineral is chalcocite.
Okay, good. And this is hole
21.
21. Okay, that's the juicy stuff that you had reported.
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, probably one of our more significant results to date, and again, really exciting because it's part of a brand new discovery south of the former mine.
What's the rock chip?
This rock chip is actually an example of the waste rock that during previous operations, which was only focused on oxide gold mineralization, when they encountered this heavy sulfide, they treated it as waste rock. So even though this is very similar to the ore we're drilling underneath, the former operation treated it as waste rock. So this is an example of about 6 million tons of mineralization that was backfilled into the pit and is very accessible and might be part of the story moving forward.
Why is it chalcocite? That's chalcocite, right? The specks here?
Yeah.
That are sort of disseminated?
Yeah.
Why is it so much concentrated in hole 21 and it's not as concentrated in this chip?
Well, that's a good question. I think we just hit, a good part of the structure where there is more copper-rich fluids kind of pulsing through the system. And also, these are from two different breccias. So this waste rock would have been part of this kind of brewer breccia, we call it. And again, this southern breccia, which we call the Tanyard area, might just have more copper in it than the brewer breccia. So.
Okay, awesome. What else are you getting excited by from the things that are on here? This looks cool, but I don't know if it is of any merit, but it looks cool.
Yeah, this was actually the initial discovery in the Tanyard zone. This was hole 15, drilled in 2021. And this was really the first kind of drill hole that signified the potential of this entire area. So this was a very significant intersection. I think it was 60-some meters of a gram and about 0.2% copper. Obviously some higher grade mineralization within, such as this intersection I think is nearly 0.6% copper and 5 grams per ton gold. So yeah, this was really what kind of clued us into the Tanyard area, was the results of this hole in hole 15.
What are you most excited about, looking forward to this year? What are you looking forward to the most?
Well, certainly getting back the rest of our results and taking all of the data that we've captured and updating our geologic model and our kind of exploration strategy moving forward. And then certainly when we raise more money, I'm very much looking forward to tracing the new Tanyard zone along strike and getting some more fantastic intercepts such as hole 21.
And I hope we can follow up with an interview on that as well. Patrick, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, Andre, Delta Resource Limited. I've been meaning to do a long format interviews with you, so I'm happy to see you here. Give me the elevator pitch.
All right, well, Delta is a Canadian explorer exploring in Canada. We trade under DLTA on the Venture Exchange in Toronto. We currently have 100 million shares outstanding. We had a market cap before this conference of 10 million, but we're now to 14 because we published results on Friday. On Friday, we published an intersection of 10 meters of 16 grams per ton gold. We've also been picked up by a fellow news writer that recommended Delta, Brian Lundin.
Okay.
We currently have, and we're lucky in that respect, we still have $5 million in our treasury. We're currently drilling. We had originally a 5,000 meter drill program planned. We're at the tail end of that 5,000 meters. We still have to report on about 3,500 meters of that drilling. But we've expanded our drilling program because it's been successful and because we've got some brand new, really amazing targets. So that's the elevator pitch.
That's an elevator pitch. Well, the 16 grams that you hit, were you expecting to hit that?
We were drilling, so Delta, we're doing our homework. We want to know how much we've got. So we're sitting right next to the Trans-Canada Highway, stone's throw away, on a topographic high. We've got a huge resource, and we did our internal resource estimate, or I should say a mineral inventory. We calculated with 0.3 grams per ton cutoff grade, and we capped everything at 10 grams per ton. And we figure we have a target, or at least a resource, that we've defined by drilling that is non-43-101 compliant, but is still anywhere between 1 million ounce to 2.2 million ounces, grading 1.1 to 1.3 grams per ton gold. So we need to develop on this. So right now we're drilling to expand the mineralization, and we're drilling to increase our level of confidence in what we already have. So that mineral inventory I talked about is strictly on 26,000 meters of drilling. So we're barely starting to scratch the surface, and we need to gain more and more confidence in our deposit, and that is why we're drilling, what we would call infill holes, but they're very widely spaced. And it led to the discovery of a brand new target to the east, which we're going to be testing probably in April.
How many meters do you think you need to answer the question, is it there?
I hope very few, but we've planned an additional 3,000 meters that we're going to be announcing.
How much is that going to run you?
We're drilling for about $250 a meter, all inclusive. So it's not that expensive. As I said, we have $5 million in the treasury right now. When it's all said and done, we'll still have more than $3.5 million in the treasury. So we're sitting in good shape financially.
Right. How much is G&A running you this year? What are you budgeting?
We're budgeting about $75,000 a month. So we're a very lean company.
Okay.
Yeah,
you don't
all work from home.
Oh, okay. Well, that's it. I do as well. I'm just not allowed to leave the house, but that's a different question. What do you, okay, $75,000 a month. So that's it. Well, you don't need to raise capital, but if you have good results and the stock keeps running, are you gonna?
Of course. In these markets right now,
anytime you see a good raise in your stock price, it gives you the opportunity to replenish the treasury. And this is something that we're going to have to contemplate when it arrives. We do not want to do it at these prices because the price even at 14 cents is really depleted. We did our bought deal financing last year at 45 cents, and we're planning on doing it north of 45 cents this second time around.
Big plans.
Big plans. Big results coming up.
We've also brought some rocks here with you. Let's maybe look at what you've brought, because this is a new hole, right? This is the
hole number
with the
90
VG?
is the one that we just published on Friday. Hole number 90 intersected 10 meters of 15.9 grams per ton gold. Unfortunately, the core we have here is just a little bit further up the hole. We had to select our drill core before we had the assays. So we brought this core. It has some visible gold in it, so it was a little sexy. So that's what we brought. But we've got several other drill holes here. One of the drill holes that we have here is our discovery hole, and the discovery hole intersected 31 meters of 5.9 grams. And we've got another hole here, hole 30, where we intersected 66 meters of 2.06 grams per ton gold. And all that mineralization starts right from surface. So it's a really big system, and we're hoping to show just how big it is by continuing to drill the extensions.
Is this grade variability worrying you in any way, where you go from 3 to 5 to 15?
Not really, because when we do our predictions, when we do our calculations, we cap everything at 10. So we even had a 1,600 grams per ton earlier in the year or last year. Sadly, we have to cut that to 10 grams per ton, but the variability is very normal in a deposit that has visible gold. But we were surprised when we calculated our mineral inventory that only a few assays had to be cut to 10 grams. So the deposit actually holds itself very well. The mineralization is fairly homogeneous throughout. It's not like a big vein with specks of gold. This is a stockwork of mineralization where little veinlets from 1 millimeter to 3 centimeters just sort of percolate through the rocks, and more density of veinlets, the higher the grade. So it's a bit easier to follow than your typical mesothermal vein type deposit.
Does that make your metallurgy better or worse?
It really, that's not what makes the difference in the metallurgy. In this particular case, we have a little bit of arsenopyrite, and of course the fear is, is this gold going to be refractory? But we're not worried at all. We started our metallurgical work. The thin section work that we've done shows that the gold is between the grains. It's free gold between the grains of arsenopyrite and pyrite, or just free gold, within the gangue minerals. So I'm not worried about it, but we're going to do it just to show people that it's there, and it's not a worrisome problem.
So the next news release, is that going to be metallurgy, or you think more drilling?
It's going to be more drilling. We've talked to the metallurgical company, or the company that's going to be doing our testing, and we're probably looking at 8 weeks of turnaround at least. So right now we're selecting our samples to send to them. Once we've selected that, they're going to start doing their assay work, and so I would suspect it's probably going to be summer by the time we get those numbers.
Is there by the way a royalty on this project? I'm just now thinking about it.
There is a royalty on the project. The highest royalty that we have is 2% NSR. We can buy back at least 1% of it, and then the second % we have a first right of refusal on. So it's not a bad NSR to have given out. On the main Delta 1 property, there's a 1.75% NSR. We actually bought back 1% NSR for $50,000 at the very beginning of the program because we were so confident that we were going to get there.
So who did you buy it from? Who's holding that right now?
The prospector we optioned the property from was getting grants from the Ontario Prospectors Association, And so they're getting grants of $10,000 to $15,000, which is a great program in Ontario for prospectors. But as they do that, they take a small NSR each time. So they had accumulated about 1% NSR on this, and we immediately bought it back. So.
All right, well, I'm liking it so far. I'm obviously liking the grade. I hope you can keep delivering on it, and we should sit down for a longer interview someday, but thank you for your time.
Sounds like a plan. I was very happy to meet you and happy to give the interview.
Okay, the audio on my laptop hasn't been that great, so I'm pretty much in the closet right now, but that's it for day 3. Back at the Airbnb now to some amazing news. My flight has been canceled. Apparently there are strikes going on in Germany. And even though I booked through Brussels Airlines, they gave the flight to Air Canada, who gave the flight to Lufthansa, who has strikes. And because apparently it's not within their control, which I obviously disagree with, they're not compensating us or anything like that. It's just rebooking the flight for Friday, but like the hotel is not paid and not any of that. And we have to book a hotel or an Airbnb sort of last minute, so I guess it should be fun. Still no uranium interviews. The CEOs are either again off talking to important people, or again no desire to an unscripted interview, which has started to kind of piss me off. But I'm meeting other people who I've never met before. I'm sort of collecting quite a lot of cards. I don't know, maybe over 30 cards. I haven't counted. I will count them later, but for future interviews potentially, which is great. And there were free magazines. Oh, well, there were always free magazines. Apparently there's like a place on PDAC where you can see all the free magazines from, well, not all of them, but a lot of free magazines from sort of from the industry that cover everything. So I saw them today, and as a good Slavic hillbilly, I collected all of them, of course. BHP gave me a measuring tape, notepad, a pen, and what's this called? It's like a level or something. What do you call it? Yeah, it's all in one tool though. So I have to look this up actually. It's a spirit level. That's what it is. So yeah, they gave me that for free, and it was just for saying hi to one of the girls there, obviously uncontrollably charmed by my orange beard. But yeah, so far so good. Off to only one dinner. Yesterday was good too. So the Toronto food still gets sort of like an 8, maybe 8.5 actually out of 10. Expensive though, very expensive to my taste at least. I typically don't go to restaurants. My wife's a great cook, so we eat at home. But whatever. One dinner tonight, one meeting, and one party, I guess you can call it. It's kind of funny though. They're not really parties. They're basically just like a company or a bank or whatever. They kind of book off the full pub, if you will, and they do open bars. I typically don't drink, but there are open bars everywhere, right? And most people do drink. So what's interesting for me is talking to drunk CEOs. That's incredibly amusing to me, because they basically tell you their true feelings then, right? And a lot of them hate their jobs, which is understandable, I suppose. But yeah, it's very funny talking to drunk CEOs, and a lot of them get drunk. Like they don't care. There's a lot of people there too, but kind of funny. What else? Feet still destroyed, which obviously you wanted to know, as you do care about the state of my feet, and I appreciate that. But it's all worth it though. I'm happy with the meetings I've taken here, and the people I've spoken to, even if it's not on camera. A lot of the guys I met sort of on Twitter, or people commenting on these videos that have kind of become friends over time. Yeah, I get to meet here, and it's yeah, it's really great. I like it. I initially hoped to do like 20 company interviews though, but I don't even know if that's doable, since tomorrow is day 4. It's the last day, which is only a half a day from 9 to 12. And again, most don't want to talk to me, but I'll try nonetheless. I'll go to the Core Shack again. That's something I don't think I talked about it yesterday, but it's like a place where everybody has rocks, but a lot of the companies just have like a drill core on their booth to talk about. Actually, it's not that many. Most actually don't have any type of rocks or anything else. So I try to approach or at least film interviews with mostly companies who have rocks, because again, I don't typically get to see that many. So yeah, that's I like that. What was I going this way? Yeah, main takeaway from today is kind of same as yesterday. Geology matters. That's where I was going, but psychology matters too. That's what I've started noticing. I've been going through a course, by the way, on behavioral biology. It sounds fancier than it is. It's just on YouTube. It's also linked on resourcetalks.com. that should be of help. It's not my course or anything. It's again a free course on YouTube. I've just linked it on the website. That's all. But talking to these CEOs, you really notice like, well, they want to work here, right? That's what it comes down to. A lot of them. So talking to geologists who haven't had like media training or have not been CEOs is kind of better because they just want to talk about the rocks. Basically, they don't want to work you into the story and tell you what you want to hear. They just want to tell you about the rocks and how the rocks are. But of course, you have to know what you're talking about, right? And they sort of let the rocks do the selling if the rocks are good, which I kind of like. But yeah, day 3 of the conference is done, but a lot of conference actually happens outside of the conference, as I've alluded to. I've been to many meetings and pre-dinners and dinners and parties, as I said. So if you ever come to PDAC, which I think if people are getting serious about this space, they probably shouldn't get serious about this space. Space not that serious. But if you ever do come to, I'm joking, of course, but if you ever do come to PDAC, you can't just sort of walk the floor and hope to get something out of it. I'm constantly like asking people, being annoying, like, hey, what are you doing tonight? And I trying to get yourself invited, or almost forcefully invited into dinners with some of the bigger names in the space. They're often there. Annoy them as well while on the dinner, and who knows, they might give you an interview and make you YouTube famous, right? That's the entire goal here. But yeah, that's it for day 3. Now on to day 4 to look at some more rocks, and I'll maybe shoot an outro on the floor. It's very loud though, it's confusing, and I'm stuttering. But yeah, on to day 4 now. All right, Stuhini Exploration, one of the few pure molybdenum exploration or development companies that is on the show here today. Give me the pitch.
Oh, hey, pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. No, we have the Ruby Creek deposit in northern British Columbia. It's quite an advanced brownfields project. It funded into construction, went through bankable feasibility, environmental assessment. They had big credit facilities. They started building the mine. 2008 financial crisis, the price of molybdenum collapsed. And we ended up getting out of bankruptcy when moly was less than $10 a pound. We got it for $2.5 million in cash and shares, and nobody really cared. So the first few years, we basically incubated the asset, knowing we had what we believe is a world-class asset. And then 2 years ago, in late 2021, the price of moly started moving up and started heading about $15. We thought, hey, let's get this off the back burner onto the front burner. And we hired Stephen Ricciardelli of MDA to do very conservative, to do a mineral resource estimate. Now, the old company had a resource estimate, but the exchange wants you to do your own after 10 years. So we hired them, and they came up with a notable resource. It's 433 million pounds measured and indicated, and there's another 45 million pounds of inferred. We own it now. We've completed the option. There was a road accessible. There was a Forest Service road, and Leadcore upgraded the road to a haul road. It was at $23 million back in the day. We recently got our BC Mines Act permit renewed. Now, we don't have EAC, and that's expensive. And we did a desktop review this last year of the EAC, and we're looking for a partner. In certain markets, the juniors in the past have been able to develop them, like Thompson Creek built their project on their own. But the market's conditions have changed so much nowadays that little juniors like us need a player. The challenging thing for us is that not everyone's in the molybdenum space. What's encouraging is a company like Zygen. Last year they segued, or in late 22, into the moly space and bought a big underground operation for $750 million and called molybdenum a metal of the future. So they're very smart, and we believe that because we're close to the seaport of Alaska, it's an ice-free, year-round seaport, 250 kilometers from there, that our most likely target is Asia, be that China, Japan, or Korea.
The Zijin guys are here at the show. Anyone stopping at the booth? Anything you can tell me?
Yes, they did. Yes, okay. They did. And they actually looked at, there was a hole that bottomed out called 8417 that bottomed out in 46 meters of 0.23, and they were definitely pointing to that hole, right? Because those are very notable numbers.
Right.
Again, our resource is open in 3 directions. It's open at depth, but as a small junior with $1.5 million in the bank, we don't want to, we want to keep a very low share count and very high insider holding, and we got to be careful, right, about diluting at the right times. And now that maybe the markets are waking up, and the gold waking up, it sort of starts a chain reaction. But this is a generational opportunity for anybody, whether you're in the precious metals or base metal space, because tremendous underinvestment and underappreciation for things you grow and things you mine are the building blocks of everything. And there'll be shortages, and prices will probably soar, and fingers crossed, right?
When the Zijin guys stop by, they look at the rocks. We're going to look at the rocks here in a second as well. They look good, right? So there's no way not to like them. Well, what about when they hear that you're in Canada? Anyone?
Yes, that's the issue right now. Sino-Canadian relations. I wouldn't have this project were it not for, the past history, because there was Chinese interest in the past, and we had a diplomatic tiff with China back in the day. Meng Wanzhou, the Huawei exec, was detained at the Vancouver airport, and China-Canadian relations. And then they kidnapped the two Michaels, and it really fell off. And since then, there's been no investment in Canada, very little. And the Chinese companies were very reluctant to do business with Canada. I believe that'll change. It did in the past, and they're smart, and we need some new leadership in this country. I don't want to get into politics, but when we do, I think those doors will open up again. There's also Japanese interest, of course. What's unique about molybdenum? It's the realm of the big steel companies, right? So usually they do their offtakes directly, and they need steel. So that's what's unique about it. It's not very well understood. It's quite misunderstood by people, but it's very common. There's a 630 million pound a year market in 2022, and I believe it's about 650 now. Kerry Knowles told me it was growing at 4% a year. So it's growing very rapidly. It's, the World Bank called it a green energy metal as well, involved in wind turbines and geothermal, even lightning of autos. A lot of green energy stuff does involve molybdenum.
Right. You said you got this out of bankruptcy. There's no chance it's going to end up in bankruptcy again, is it? Because you said you have $1.5 million in the bank. How far does that get you?
No, the reason it went into bankruptcy, the previous operator had a $300 million market cap that peaked at $300 million. It was at least $250 for 8 or 9 months, according to my research. And they had a large credit facility. I believe it was about $700 million credit. So they drew on the credit facility, they drew $80 million. So they had this big debt. And as they started construction, they were already spending a fair amount of money on construction when things fell apart, so that's why they died. And we're not taking debt onto our balance sheet regardless. I get people offering me debt all the time, but that's not wise for a small junior, right? We want equity. That's the only financing we take, and we're lucky. We have good backers. Eric Sprott's backed us. Sprott Asset Management's backed us. We have some big European investors that back us, and we're very fortunate to have access to capital. And I'm a businessman first and foremost, and I'm in the private sector, and try and bring that to this. That's what I'm most proud about our company is we watch our dollars, our share count's low, we're very low burn rate. I'm probably the lowest paid CEO on the floor here, and I take criticism for that too, because people say you can't run a mining company with a $24,000 salary with a CEO. I'm fortunate, but I just you see a lot of companies doing very little where they're drawing big salaries and just shares for debt and all these type of things. But I don't like that.
Let's look at the rocks and see what's getting the Chinese excited, because you have some rocks from the new target that you're going to this year. What do we see? Is this that's molybdenite, I assume? I don't know.
Yeah, it's molybdenite. Yeah, it's moly disulfide or molybdenite. That's what generally we're after when you mine it. This is from Ruby Creek. The deposit is very advanced and ready to go. And this is a big rosette right here. You can see, and that's pure, and it leaves a gray residue. And half the deposit is small little mineralization like this.
What do you mean residue? So if I rub it, my fingers are going to get black?
Yeah, you have a little bit of gray on there. You feel how light it is.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it's very, but that's pure. That's very pure. That's very rarely do you see. And sometimes the drill core blebs take the entire part, rosettes take the entire drill core. So this is pretty spectacular. But it's not like most porphyries. There's multiple styles of mineralization, and these are the basic two. And again, I'm not a geologist, so I'm cutting me a little bit of slack. And this is from a new showing. We knew there was an occurrence north of us, and it was staked. And a couple of years ago, the person dropped it, so we staked it right away. And we knew Placer had drilled back in the 80s and had some porphyry. It looked like they called it a porphyry, deposit. And they had, I'd say a little. I think they had about 40 meters of like 0.04, but it was notable. And we went on site last year, this past season, and we were excited because this was a showing from Volcanic Creek. And it looks good, and that's right at surface. And what was interesting is this showing is I'm told about 900 meters away from Placer drilled. So it looks like a pretty good signature. And what we'd like to do is go in there and next and do some geophysics. I really believe if we find a second satellite deposit in the area, that'll be a real turning point for us and really make it attractive, possibly for a big giant as opposed to a mid-sized company. Have a district.
It's interesting though when I see the native molybdenite like this, because this is not a high-grade deposit, but then there's obviously high-grade showings here. Does that make it nuggety? Is there a risk for it to be nuggety?
It was pretty continuous. It's all been drilled out and been through feasibility, and again, it's spectacular in areas, and you've got areas that are void, and maybe these are misleading, these sort of samples, but it does. there's areas of the deposit obviously that are much higher grade, and the idea, this is a big bulk tonnage situation, like a big open pit, and this is what you end up with, the lower grades.
Right.
It did, again, I have to be careful what I say, because the previous operator had a feasibility study that we can look at and you can look at, and it pointed to a much higher grade starter pit, and very shallow too. What's unique about this is a very shallow deposit. It's very shallow open pit, and being pure play, there's differences, you know, when you process and mine pure play molybdenum versus copper moly. And again, I got to be careful what I say, but you know, I talk to people that operate, they say it's cheaper and cleaner, and it's supposed to be a very clean type deposit, very ESG friendly. I'm like, open pit mining is not clean, but it's not full of messy sulfides. It's a sort of fluorine based deposit, so it's quite unusual. And they had they had 91% metallurgical recoveries in the starter pit, and I believe overall the overall deposit was 90%. And that's just one crush and one float, right? Moly floats really well, right?
Crush, grind, float, crush, grind, and float, and that's it. You don't have to do anything else.
Crush, grind, and float. That's it.
That's
and
what
it's a water base with a bit of diesel and kerosene.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair. What is since we last spoke? Have the plans changed for this year? Are you doing anything else?
No. What we're trying to do though is we're not happy with our market cap, and neither is anybody. And we're seeing a few opportunities out there, so we've been exploring other acquisitions and other things that are synergistic for us, being base metals and being nimble explorers. And so we'll see what happens. And you know, and theoretically, if someone's got a $2 million valuation, I have a $10 million valuation, we like their assets, if we can combine on a 10-to-2 ratio, that would make sense, and we combine teams and save money and swallow up a good asset and a good team, right? So those are the sort of things I think you have to look at. I mean, no one's happy, but there's shells out there with great projects, right? So there's tremendous opportunity now within the sector, not just for us, but for investors, right?
That idea sounded almost too specific. You have anything in the back of your mind?
I can't say much right
fair
now,
enough,
but we're close to an agreement on a project, but there's never any guarantee, right? And we're looking at other stuff too. We're just trying to be open-minded, but we also, you know, our Revelstoke Zinc project and our Q project in the Yukon, our Manitoba Nickel, our project we've acquired very inexpensively, and they're very interesting and at different stages. And it just really depends on the ability of funding. You know, last year we were very fortunate, the price of moly spiked up and we filled our bank with money, but it shows people what happens when moly moves, you know, and also, you know, when the moly went from 17 to 37 and back down to 20, but it's a tight market. And you know, those type of moves shows you how tight it is, and I think that's a sort of a shot across the bow for not just moly, for copper and all these projects, because it's a fairly tight market, and you can't just snap your fingers and get it. And I think that people aren't aware what's going on.
Right, I'm at the Adventus booth. I typically have an interview scheduled in the near future with the other Christian, but I have one Christian here in front of me that's the chief geologist. So we're going to be talking about the rocks. Tell me, what have you brought with you, Christian?
Hi, nice to meet you. So what we have here is the vertical section of the VMS deposit that we have at El Domo. The upper part you can see here is actually a grainstone, or what we call a grainstone. It has a VMS classed as part of the mineralization. This portion is also part of the resource. Going down into the section, you have the actual VMS deposit. And the upper part of the VMS, as you can see here, the darker portion is reaching sphalerite, gold, and thus it's the gold and zinc rich area with a lot of barite. Once you keep going down, you have the copper rich section, which is mostly chalcopyrite. In the copper rich section, this sample, for instance, has 16% copper. And once you start going down more, you get into the food wall of the system, and you can see here some of the alteration. We have gypsum, sericite, elite alteration, and that's where the system hotspots were at.
When I look at some of the grades that are listed on here, though, they change quite a lot. Like there's a 50% zinc portion, right, sort of in a second row, but then at first you start with like 3% zinc, and also the gold is quite variable. Is grade variability an issue with the system?
No, because these are basically lithological limits. This grainstone, it's a lower grade because the VMS clasts are the ones that are giving it the grade itself. But once you go into the VMS, you go into the actual massive sulfide, and that's why you have such a difference. The grainstone is, as I mentioned, it's part of the resource, but it is lower grade. The rich part is the actual VMS deposit, which when we core the log, when we log the core, it's very obvious the limits of each, and that helped the modeling as well.
Okay.
Those hard boundaries.
It does look like, just by the looks of it, it looks like complex mineralization or complex. Just by the looks of this rock, like there's a bunch of stuff happening. I don't even know what's happening. Is this a complex mineralization system?
No, the good thing about the El Domo is that it's very well preserved. So it's flat lying, and this was a depositional system at some point. So you have it's basically a horizontal lens. So the lithologies are very easy seeing when in the core, and this upper part, even though it looks complex, it's a basic sedimentary unit. So it's a polyclastic in the sizes of the class are very variable, and so it's actually a depositional system, a basic deposition system. But the good thing is that it has the VMS clasts.
Right. Does that help with continuity?
Yes, given that it is a sedimentary system, it has horizontal continuity. In the area near El Domo, there are some tectonic boundaries. In this case, some faults that are the boundary to the south and to the north. To the south and to the east of the open pit. But there is potential for additional lenses that could be. We have another anomaly near about 4 to 5 kilometers southwest. It's similar mineralization, so it's probably not long extent continuity, but inside the El Domo there is continuity that's easy to map.
Okay, what are you hoping to do this year? What kind of rocks are you hoping to see this year?
So, well, this year we're mostly busy with getting ready for construction.
Okay.
Like I mentioned, the other targets around Curipamba project, we are working in some surface work, but for the most part, it's working on the construction side.
As a chief geologist, what's your favorite target, basically, from the ones that are undrilled as of yet?
Undrilled, Agua Santa. That's our favorite target. In 2021, we drilled 11 drill holes. We encountered VMS mineralization. Similar setup, but we need to develop it more and find extents and go from there.
Christian, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for doing this.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so Defense Metals, I am planning a more in-depth interview, but I saw you have some good-looking rocks, so I thought I'd stop by. You say high-grade rare earths at surface. What do you have here? What am I looking at?
We're looking at a dolomite carbonatite deposit here in the yellow and blue, and this dolomite carbonatite deposit is a light rare earth project based in Prince George, and it's surrounded by the syenite and the limestone as a country rock. So it's intruding into a sedimentary package, and basically it's really enriched in high-grade rare earth elements like cerium, lanthanum, neodymium, and praseodymium. And these neodymium, praseodymium comes into the production of the electric vehicles and the batteries and the supermagnets and highly advanced medical appliances and military advanced appliances. Yeah.
What's interesting to me about rare earths is that they're not rare. What's rare about them is that pulling them apart is actually rare, basically, as far as I understand it. Is that the case for you? Is it hard?
It is not hard. I mean, like, it's hard, but we are kind of working with SGS, and definitely they are on top of it. They come up with a flow sheet that will make it easier to kind of like process it, and hopefully like in the future we'll see how it goes as soon as the PFS study comes later this year in June, July, and hopefully that will kind of clear things out.
Okay. It's also rare, as far as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, to find them in it's rare to find economic rare earths deposits, so that's kind of where the name basically comes from. And as far as I understand it, it's mostly because of continuity, because not all deposits hang well together. What about yours? Does it hang well together?
Yes, we were for the deposit. It's kind of like really continuous. In 2019, before we took the deposit, it was a third of it exposed or like drilled, and then since 2019 we have 4 drilling campaign, and we expanded the resource significantly to about, I think, 500 meter by 300 meter and then 250 meter deep. And all the core, as you see here, is like kind of like pretty homogeneous, and it has this tan color ore minerals, which is the bastosite, syncosite, perisite. That's the beige color, and then you got the monazite, which is the red maroon color in the core.
Okay, it is sort of on a at the beginning of a hill, if you will. Does that do something for the strip ratio? Is that complicating it in any way?
Basically, when it's on a hill, it's really advantage when it comes in terms of mining the dolomite carbonatite or the rare earth. The strip ratio is really low. I think it's about like 20 to 30 centimeter. So it's really working in our favor. And imagine like this is like something that was like under glaciation for the past like 10,000 years ago. So it's we're lucky enough to kind of just have it like on the surface.
10,000 years ago, but as long back as I could make my wife smile. Let's actually look at the rocks, because they have to have some shiny stuff, which is the only thing I can basically notice. This one looks like an arrow. What is that pointing towards? Where more mineralization can be found?
No, this would be a pyrite crystal. Same thing with this one. It's just kind of like it came in after. It's not really tied to mineralization. The only thing that is tied to mineralization would be the tan-colored specks here, and they host the light rare earth elements. And then you can tell from this row, it's about 20 to 30% of it it's basically rare earth, and this row is about another 20-30%. Only in this one, what we call it is a hybrid zone, which is kind of like it's in the peripheral to the actual ore deposit. It has some of the grayish limestone, which is the remnant or the relic pieces of the limestone that was caught up in during the intrusion of the dolomite carbonatite to surface.
Okay, what's the black stuff? There's a little bit of that too, but only sort of at the beginning, I suppose, so more shallow than the rest.
We're not really sure like what's the black stuff. We haven't had a thin section, but just like a hand examination, it looks like it's a hornblende, which is also like not really tied to mineralization. Okay. Yeah, and then you got this kind of like a really fine-grained pyrite. Also, is kind of really not tied to mineralization.
Okay. Yeah. What about deleterious elements, arsenic, or anything else that is related to these deposits? How do those work?
We don't have any arsenic. We haven't seen like any arsenopyrite or any arsenic minerals in the deposit yet, and that's really like in works for our favor.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, Mo, you've done a good job. Thank you so much for going through the rocks with me.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to have you.
All right, Jean-Marc Lulin, finally seeing you in real life, which is it's very nice to meet you. But you've also brought some interesting looking rocks here with you. What have you brought?
This is our discovery hole from the Galine project. We hit 2.48% Le2O over 72.7 meters. And this hole is one of the best ever drilled in Quebec, ranked maybe the 10th best hole ever drilled in Quebec for lithium so far.
Okay.
It's a discovery hole, and of course the objective is to expand the discovery. We already confirm the grade, maybe a little bit shorter with additional intercept, but clearly we are delineating a discovery.
Okay. Can you tell by just looking at the rocks? Like, what am I looking at?
What is very interesting with lithium exploration, we can clearly see in a direct way the spodumene crystals. What is very interesting, we are dealing with coarse spodumene, crystals. This white color, you can directly identify.
Well, I can't.
Yes, you can. You can, especially with an UV light.
Okay.
The red color means spodumene.
Okay. Barbecue rocks.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Hot rocks.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is interesting. The consistency of mineralization is impressive. Of course, the grade is very impressive. It means that we are on our way to define to make a new discovery.
Does the higher grade make it harder to assay or something? Because I've heard that if it's too high grade, it could be challenging.
Yes, it's a very good question. When you have a grade higher than 2.5% lithium, you have to conduct an additional assay to address the over limit factor.
Okay. Does that make it more expensive or slower?
Yeah, a little bit more expensive, a little bit, it takes longer time, but at the end of the day, it's not an issue. We can wait for 2 additional weeks to get this kind of results.
Okay, yeah. Wait 2 weeks, but then have higher grade is better than get it right away and having nothing.
Absolutely. You're
Fair
right.
point.
But anyway, we are strongly encouraged by these results because this means that we have a strong system in place with many additional drill targets.
How are you going to follow it up this year? What else are you doing this year?
We will start drilling again very soon.
Okay, you have the money, everything's in place?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We are in a joint venture with SOQUEM, which is a governmental company. We have an excellent relationship with SOQUEM. We have the money, we have the team, we have the drill. Everything is in place to move to the next step.
Okay. And then you've also brought some other rocks that don't look like lithium to me, but what do I know?
Very different stuff.
Okay.
More traditional stuff, but this is related to the gold discovery we made in 2020.
Is that Elmer?
Elmer. Yeah,
Oh,
you're
okay.
right. Yeah,
Okay.
Elmer.
Yeah.
The Elmer deposit. We have delivered late 2023 our maiden resource estimate through a 43-101 report. It's done. Initial resource is a little bit more than 500,000 ounces for as inferred resources, on 300,000 ounces in the indicated category. Most of the resource is open pitable. About 75% of the resource could be a mine in open pit. Even it's not like a PEA, but according to the resource estimate, 55% is pit constrained. And it's a good start.
So why have you brought these rocks specifically? What's important about them? What are you seeing in them?
It's the extensive quartz veining system. And also the wall rocks are strongly mineralized. We are talking about a wide system, on average a 35 meters true thickness. The geometry is very simple. The shape of the ore body is very consistent. Maybe what is really critical, we strongly believe that there is much more potential to be discovered immediately around the deposit. The next step, of course, is to start drilling to uncover new peripheral zones around the initial discovery.
Is the quartz vein continuous throughout the drill holes and throughout the surrounding areas?
The system by itself is very continuous. The quartz vein, the envelope is very continuous, starting from surface down to 900 meters. It's a continuous ore body, saying that the quartz vein itself, inside the envelope, are discontinuous, but the overall mineralized system is continuous because it is also comprising the host rocks, which are also mineralized.
Okay. What about those little specks that we seen, like at the beginning of the hole over there?
These ones? Or?
Yeah, to the left.
to the left.
Yeah, these little
Yes,
specks.
simply disseminated pyrite.
Okay.
In that case, again, sometimes you have like difficult minerals like arsenopyrite. Here you only have pyrite, and the gold recovery, according to the preliminary metallurgical test, is very good. We can recover up to 94% of gold, including recovery by gravity, which can reach up to 37%.
Okay. That's a preliminary test, though. You think that's going to hang together all the way through with the metallurgical testing?
Yeah, it's too early to say, but early results are encouraging, and we don't see any differences in the mineralogy, in the consistency of the mineralized zone itself.
Okay.
We are not expecting any major issue regarding the metallurgy.
Okay. Well, I'll be following along, Jean-Marc. It was very nice meeting you in real life, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, those should be the famous rocks, then, I assume. Neil, what have you brought here with you?
So today we have an example of our mineralized conglomerate, which makes up the bulk of our mineralization that we're seeing at NAC. The bulk of our good, what's likely going to be the bread and butter of the deposit. Should we go on to delineate one here? And it's very, very interesting rock. It's very darkly altered with biotite and magnetite, so sort of classic mafic potassic alteration, and just speckled through with fine bornite and chalcopyrite. And even within some of these bornite veinlets, there's actually silver hypogene chalcocite, which is very, very interesting to see. It's unusual to see hypogene chalcocite in porphyry deposits, especially BC porphyry deposits. The other example of rock we have here is from our felsic intrusive suite that is cutting the porphyry stock and the abutting conglomerates and sedimentary rocks. And this
can we pause here? I'm sorry for interrupting, but how does it that this is mafic, this is felsic, they're from the same hole?
Yeah, so it's really the host of these and this alteration is much older, right? So these intrusive rocks were injected into these much older host rocks, and the primary composition of both the fluids exsolving from the intrusives and the primary composition of the conglomerates and the sedimentary rocks affect how the alteration manifests itself. And in this case, we see a lot of biotite growth and magnetite growth. There's a lot of iron available.
So that's good then, I assume?
It's indicative of being in the hotter parts of the porphyry system when we see that style of potassic alteration.
I like how you talk to me as if I know what I'm listening to, but go ahead.
Somebody out there will hopefully know. But yeah, no, we try not to dumb things down too much here. Then the felsic intrusives are very interesting because they come in slightly later than the porphyry stock itself and are hypothesized to bring in maybe the bornite enrichment we see in the bulk of our mineralized package. And so this is what we can see here in this rock is finely disseminated bornite and chalcopyrite with the absence of veining. So it's disseminated through and what looks like placed in almost a magmatic nature. So it looks like magmatic bornite, which means it's primary to that melt. So it's just a very copper sulfur saturated melt, and probably more copper than sulfur, and you're making those high copper end member copper sulfides. So it's very good to see, and as we drill more, the goal is to put together the picture in a little bit more focus and hopefully trace the source of this intrusive, because we know it comes in later than the main Babine porphyry stock, and that could present a really high-grade prize potentially on the property. Short of that, the bulk of the mineralization we have already delineated west of the porphyry stock is shaping up to be an excellent discovery in its own right. So the goal is to continue expanding our knowledge of the mineralization along the western flank, and eventually this season exploring along the south and along the east of the porphyry stock, and eventually working our way to the north. And we're going to get a lot more information as all that data comes in, and hopefully trace back to a richer source of these later intrusive phases that are bringing in a lot of the bornite.
Where do these two boxes that you brought with you, where do they fit sort of in the big picture of what you're hoping to find there in the end?
Yeah, so the box of conglomerate is an example of the bulk of our mineralization. This is down about halfway down in hole 12, so from the north zone, though we see the same mineralized conglomerate in hole 17, hole 11, hole 8, hole 16 in the south zone. And this box here is from the upper reaches of hole 17 and is an example of the diking that's bringing in a lot of mineralization. So right now, this will be the primary focus because it represents a large body of rock that's very well mineralized. This rock is hopefully, as we drill to continue to expand our footprint of broader mineralization, hopefully encounter additional intercepts of this dike at a spacing that will allow us to really piece together an orientation on it. Right now, the contacts are very irregular. It looks like it's irregularly injecting into the package of rocks, and so we just need more data density to properly vector back to a potential source.
That's when you're going to be able to answer the question, does it hang well structurally?
Yeah, so there are definitely some structural controls, whether these are east-west corridors that are complementary of a larger north-south structure that the porphyry stock was placed on, or something different we haven't seen yet. We haven't seen a lot of evidence of faulting offset, but we see evidence of potentially faults that were responsible for tapping into the plumbing of the porphyry stock in the magnetic data. So, you know, we don't see a lot of offsets. We see some maybe pre-existing structures that are likely potentially reactivated or playing important roles in controlling how the mineralization is distributed. But again, that's going to come into focus as we get more data density.
Right. Tony didn't let you bring your own hole 9?
No, hole 9 is very nice, but it doesn't fit well as a single eye-popping example of mineralization. In context, it's very, very encouraging. So it's a very big step out. It has very good mineralization through it for a blind hole, and it's indicative of a lot of smoke in a system. We think we're a little bit too close to the porphyry stock. We're outside of that sweet spot of potassic alteration and phyllic alteration transition where we're seeing our best mineralization. So when we expand the IP survey next year and continue to drill, likely a bit further to the south, and systematically stepping from that southwestern corner around to where we hit hole 9, we'll get a lot more info on why we're seeing that mineralization there too. It's very likely related to the much larger NAC system. So yeah, I
apologize if I'm insulting your intellect here, but when I look at these rocks, they look very homogeneous. Like, so this box looks all the same, this looks all the same. Not always the case for the other rocks that I've looked at here at the PDAC. Is that a good thing that that is homogeneous, or how do you interpret it?
Well, in the case of the conglomerate, normally an unaltered conglomerate would look pretty patchy. You would see different cobbles and clasts in it. It would look very heterogeneous. The homogeneous look is due to the intense biotite and magnetite alteration as a result of being within that potassic zone. So it's a good thing for us here. And, you know, homogeneous boxes of rock that all grade over 2 grams per ton gold and 0.5% copper like we have in this dike here, also very good to see because it means we've got, you know, these aren't just centimeter scale features. These are 4, 5, 6 meter wide zones and as wide as 40 meters in drill core elsewhere in hole 12, which we don't have an example of here today. So, no, that's a very good thing in our case.
All right, Neil, well, thank you so much for putting in a good effort to try and make me understand it. I appreciate your time.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, thanks for putting this together.
All right, Vincent, I've been covering the founder story for a while now, so very good to finally see the rocks in real life, but I don't necessarily know what I'm looking at. Tell me, what am I looking at?
Okay, so you are looking at shear zone. It means that the rock has been more deformed than the host rock, and with very impressive grade. You can see here you have 400 grams per ton.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, how can I see it?
Well, you can see there is a lot of pyrrhotite, and pyrrhotite is associated with mineralization.
Okay.
So it's what you tell you that you can expect very good grade. Here you have 100 grams per ton. This is 25 grams per ton.
quite the grade variability there. Is that an issue?
No, these grades are really good actually. So whatever is below like 1 or 2 grams is really good for us. So when you get this type of grade, it's really impressive.
Yeah, but I mean because it's variable. You know, you go from 25 to 100 to almost 500. Does that make it more challenging for assaying, or maybe even for continuity later on?
Not really. We know that when you have better grade, it's controlled by the refolding, so it's actually adding something. But I would say the main grade, when it's like between 5 and 10, it's really good. Yeah.
Okay. What about because you mentioned the shear zones, where can we see more about that here, as in how it all fits in the larger picture, if you will?
Okay, so we have like a regional scale fault, and within this, locally, you can have shearing, which is more deformation, and you have the grain size reduction. You can see like you have less, the grain size has been reduced, and you have more foliation.
Okay. How does, structurally, what are the structural controls, and how do you think it all hangs together, and could we see something in the rocks that proves that it hangs well together?
Well, the density of the veins, you can see there is like quite a homogeneous density of vein along the structure that we are drilling, and and the continuity along strike and at depth.
Right.
It's really impressive. Yeah.
You're drilling right now too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, yeah, we have 2 drill rigs right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it what is coming out of the ground? Just comparable rocks?
Yes, so we have this place called the Froyo and Ginger targets, which is this type of rock, and the Donuts, the new target, which is more like intrusion hosted. So it's not the same type of rocks. It's more like tonalite, it's called. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what else can we see in here? Because these rocks look a little bit darker. They are wet, so I understand that's why they're darker. But what are we seeing here with
So you have quartz, you have ankerite, it's a carbonate.
Yes.
And lots of pyrite and pyrrhotite.
Okay.
Yeah. So we are really like looking for like ankerite, pyrrhotite. It's really good indicator of mineralization.
No arsenopyrite?
No arsenopyrite, no.
Okay.
We don't have it in the project.
Right. And you're assaying for arsenic and bismuth and other stuff?
Right now, just for gold, but we send cores to get like a trace element and world rock geochemistry. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, Vincent, thank you for the quick overview. It's very nice chatting. All right, well, that's about it. This was an intense week of meetings. It's Wednesday today. I also came in last Wednesday, I believe. So what I did, a lot of flights also being canceled, so I'm stuck here for a couple more days, I suppose. But I did about 2 dozens, a couple of dozens of interviews, really. But I spoke to at least twice as many companies, most of which actually didn't want to be interviewed without hearing the questions first, especially some of the uranium stories out there, which is always curious to me, but such is the world, I suppose. Main takeaways, I'll probably think of a lot more once I've had some sleep, because I think I did manage to sleep 8 hours for the entire week. But I'll probably have some more takeaways when I'm back home. Might make a post about it on Twitter or something along those lines. But you have to get out there to these conferences. You have to get out there and meet people. You have to reach out to the CEOs, talk about them, ask questions about the rocks, ask questions about the royalties in the projects and stuff like that. Right. One caveat though, it has to be in relation. It has to make sense. The cost for getting out here has to make sense for you relative to your portfolio. If you have $5,000 invested in this space and only a small portion of your portfolio, like the sane people among us should, not that I'm one of them, unfortunately, maybe it doesn't make too much sense to get out here if it's going to cost you $5-10 grand or whatever it's going to cost you to stay here. I don't know where you're staying, but I suppose that's pretty much it. PDAC was cool for me. I like Toronto, and I'm rambling at this point, so I'll cut it here. I'll get some sleep, and I'll do some more takeaways. But thank you for watching.